How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Sweet. Um, how are you coping with everything at the moment?
Um, I think as well as anyone probably, it's just odd, isn't it? I mean, the first time I wasn't too bothered
Mm,
uh, because so I was doing the last year of my degree last year.
okay.
So four of us in the house, and the other three decided, to sort of jump ship before it got too bad
Right, right.
and go back to where they're from. But I pretty much moved everything over to Sheffield, where I'm based now.
Hmm.
So I just stayed in the house. So there was just me and a full house to myself for, about 2.5, 3 months through the first part of lockdown, which was difficult, obviously. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
this one's not quite as bad
Right.
in that sense because I've been through the sort of being alone and being a bit bored and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And now it's just sort of the frustration of it. You just want to get back out there and do something. I mean, first one I just did sort of like live streams and Zoom quizzes, and the same stuff that everybody else was doing. Whereas now, I think nobody can be asked with it anymore, can they? They just want to get back out again now.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I was speaking to one of my mates last weekend, and he was saying how it's tough for him to stay motivated in terms of production with tracks, mixes, and things like that. Trying to keep it fresh because obviously you do get inspiration from leaving the house. These many small things that we don't even really think of. Just going outside, seeing different people, seeing different places, different cars, different all these different things that just give you ideas in your mind. When you don't have that so much, it can be really hard to try and
yeah,
grab
yeah, that,
inspiration from basically nothing. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, the first thing I want to start with was what was your first sort of musical experience?
um, I, I probably had quite an abstract sort of way into it in that I feel like with a lot of people, you sort of get into dance music maybe when you're like 15, 16, like you fully sort of start to get into it because you're aware of the sort of clubbing scene and the music industry becomes sort of a thing then, and you sort of move beyond the UK top 40 on a Sunday afternoon on Radio 1, and you start getting into ASOT or Revealed, Hardwell and that kind of stuff sort of starts to come about. For me, it was a little bit different in that my dad's got quite a big uh, interests and a bit of DJing history. Not nothing too extensive, but he's into like all the drum and bass jungle kind of scene. So I started sort of just playing around from the age of 10, 11 on his turntables, mixing random jungle tunes and drum and bass tunes on vinyl. And I just ended up asking for a keyboard at one point, around the same sort of phase, and thinking, oh, well, I'll try and learn to play an instrument. Fast forward a couple of years into secondary school, and I'd sort of taught myself to play all the big sort of EDM kind of tunes on piano. Like I did GCSE music, I did Clarity by Zed,
Mhm.
and If I Lose Myself as my two assessment pieces.
Wow.
Because everyone else is doing like these random sort of classical music kind of interpretations, and I'm there, playing 128 EDM tunes. Um, so I sort of stemmed into it from like this early age of getting this sort of musical influence from my dad,
Mhm.
and then that sort of blended into me going and looking a little bit further. After I really got into like Eric Prydz early on,
Okay.
around like age 11, 12.
Wow. Okay.
Um, start getting into trance. Origin Nielsen was the first trance producer I came across.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really got into his stuff, and then I started going, into some really weird sort of classic names. People like Baggy Begovic, who
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
I don't think he's really doing too much now.
Well, he goes under
Uh,
Baggy now, I think, doesn't he?
yeah, yeah. Seed Van Reel, some really random kind of, late 2010s sort of era
Yeah.
trance producers, and went digging a little bit. And then that obviously, with the sort of initial vinyl kind of history, drove me to start getting some of my own records, which incidentally was more like big room EDM kind of stuff
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was big into all the podcasts and radio shows. So I got like the Hardwell on Air, no, sorry, the the Hardwell revealed volume, whatever they
Yeah,
were.
what the CD albums?
Well, no, but I got the vinyl ones. So I've got
No
like, I
way.
think I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and a couple of them are signed as well. So
Wow.
then obviously they're mixed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it really tests you because you've got Hardwell's mixing it for about 30 seconds. So you've got about like the 15-second outro of one tune before the 15-second intro of the next tune comes in. So realistically, you've got about 15 seconds
Yeah, yeah.
before you end up putting two intros in at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It really got me kind of short with it. And I loved sort of going into it this way because obviously trying to learn the piano is all about very sort of minute details can massively change something. Learning drum and bass on vinyl, which is like 174, 175 BPM, dropping down to EDM, but then cutting the mix time, it sort of worked hand in hand. So I sort of just stepped into it that way, and then just carried on buying random stuff because obviously I couldn't go out to any events till I was like 17, 18. So this was like, I was like 15, 16 buying all these Hardwell and Alesso and Avicii vinyls from around the world and just sifting through Discogs on a weekend and just seeing what I can get for less than a tenner from money that I'd earned working at Chinese. Yeah.
I love that. That's epic, that is.
I just proper got into it that way. And then, I'm not as obsessed as I used to be, but I used to be fully like religiously every Friday, Hardwell there, every Thursday, BA-SOT. I properly get stuck into it. Whereas now I think I just go and look at the highlights and pick out the tunes I want to take from it rather than sort of listen. But that was the way then. You wait for the Hardwell and rips, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Just pick them out on YouTube and chuck them on virtual DJ or whatever because, it was vinyl or whatever I had on my laptop. So I never had any sort of electronic decks growing up, but it sort of just pushed me. And then I obviously got my decks, and that sort of stemmed me to where I am now. But it's been a good 10, 11 sort of years from DJing on vinyl, playing drum and bass to now. Yeah.
When did you get into the Hardwell on airs? Was it fairly early on?
I got into like all the big room sort of stuff when I was about 12, 13 maybe.
Me too.
Proper got into it like dead early. I mean, even when I was listening to sort of like chart music when I was younger, it was always, I distinctly remember I have very few sort of early childhood memories, but well, not that early, but when I was about 8 years old, so about 2007, maybe 2008, I distinctly remember listening to Calvin Harris, I'm Not Alone. I think it's around then anyway. And that just being like a tune that stuck in my head from my childhood because it was such a distinctive tune anyway, with that big sort of chord riff. And, tunes like that, Pajano, Call on Me, those sort of era dance. And I was never interested in any of the, chart stuff. It was always sort of dance music. And then as I got into like my early teens, I just got obsessed with it. I remember just walking around school blasting out Otto Knows Million Voices and not realising how loud it is, and people sat in class like I'm sat away doing my work and they're going like trying to take the mick out with me. But I just wasn't bothered. I had it absolutely blasted the tunes out all the time. Absolutely, loved it from an early age and just got right into it.
Oh mate, those were the days, man.
Yeah.
Otto Knows. Wow. I remember back then as well, he was playing Tomorrowland main stage as well.
Yeah. 2013 or something, 2014, he was proper up there.
Yeah.
Proper got into those like random, initially like one-hit wonder kind of artists.
Yeah.
That stemmed into something. I absolutely loved them because I just thought, that's what's unique. What was unique about dance music at the time. You could make one massive tune and really get there and then go and build something out of it afterwards. It wasn't a case of make that one massive tune, then make 10 good follow-ups, and then you might get, the small stage at Ultra or something. It, make Animals, make Million Voices, and you've got a good few gigs out of it.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I love some of the guys from that era, and man, I wish they'd come back. You got like Tommy Trash, Henry Fong.
Tommy Trash put one out yesterday, didn't he? He's,
yeah.
He's on Mousetrap now, but it's a complete shift, isn't it? I like that sound, but not from Tommy Trash. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I haven't heard it yet. I'll have to listen to it.
It's a very Dead Mousey tune. Do you know what I mean? It's that classic Mousetrap vibe.
Is it similar to like what he did with IO? Let Me Go.
Yeah, that sort of vibe. Yeah,
Because I did really like that, but it's very
yeah. I mean,
different to what people know him
that's
for.
that's what I mean. I like the tune. I like the sound of it. I just like Tommy Trash for the Reload era. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I got into him because I like Wake the Giant.
yeah,
Probably my favourite of his is Cascade as well. That was
yeah.
heavy as hell.
He really, he just came out though at that big 4 or 5 years of just throwing a massive. There was no small tune. It was
No.
just a massive tune every 3 or 4 months, and then he just fell off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a shame, man. Oh man. But yeah, so you say your first sort of people or the first guy you was listening to was Prids then?
Yeah, I remember from a very early age, obviously ripping tunes off iTunes and stuff off YouTube, like the old Pride tunes from sets that people had, ripped out. I used to absolutely love them. I can't remember which volume it was, but there's one Pride volume that has about 6 or 7 tunes on that I remember at that sort of time in my childhood I was absolutely milking. There was like You, Align, that kind of era, the earlier sort of Pride era.
Mm-hmm.
Shadows, those sort of ones that are really sort of like the classic ones. And it sort of just stemmed out of that. The Swedish kind of obsession has always been the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got into Avicii really early on. I bought both of Avicii's vinyls and CDs and pretty much all of his singles on vinyl. It was all about trying to, get stuck into that kind of Swedish electronic scene that now isn't maybe as strong as it was.
Mm.
Like Alesso and all that. It was just really all the Swedes and Calvin Harris initially. And then it sort of just spread out from there because obviously Calvin was the only real big one in the UK that was making like an EDM sort of sound.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've got like all your housey kind of Chemical Brothers sort of names, but it just sort of stemmed out of Prids. I mean, Orjan Nielsen's Norwegian, but it was that proper Scandi EDM trance sort of era that just took it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I fell in love with Orjan Nielsen stuff quite early as well. He was probably the first trance guy that I got into because Hardwell was playing a lot of his stuff as well, weren't he?
Yeah, I can't remember where I picked it up. I think it was Legions that was the first one that I really got into, and then there was Legions Vendetta.
The one that I really grabbed was Iconic.
Yeah. Well, Iconic was a bit late. I think it was like 2016. I'm talking like 2012, 2013, kind of really early.
As far back as
yeah, it was a really random one as well because he's a well respected and a good size artist, but he's not like the biggest trance name in the world. Yeah, I just came across him one day and I just thought this guy's class. He's got such a unique sort of sound. He's always had his own sort of identity.
Yeah.
He stuck. It was just really, he's always had that kind of big room trancey kind of crossover that it had so much energy. I didn't really have much time for breakdowns back then, unless it was like pretty big chord progression-y kind of breakdowns. When I first got into trance, it was very, very full-on kind of trance, like Armin and Andrew Rayel, Euphoria, whatever that one was called.
Yeah.
Sort of, Sound of the Drums, Babina remix. The big sort of heavy hitting big room trance.
Yeah.
Properly, and then obviously that sort of stemmed into big room and the sort of Dutch obsession. I mean, I've never really gotten to like DVLM or any of that kind of stuff, but all the Dutch kind of big room sound. I've really got into that as about 14, 15 years old, and because it was just everywhere, wasn't it then? Whereas now, you've got kids coming into dance music and it's just tech house and...
Well, like, are you listening to some EDM meanwhile they're listening to Adam Beyer or whatever, and you're like...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what I say. Like, obviously, I got collecting those revealed volumes quite early. Like, I've got 1 through 10. Like, I bought them each year as they came out. I think the first one came out, like, 2011, maybe? Something like that.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, the first track, you would never think it. The first track of a revealed CD, of the first revealed volume album was Tim Berg and Norman Doray. Sebastian Drums tweet it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'd never think that Avicii would be the first guy to have the first track on a revealed CD. You think, you don't put those two together?
Well, yeah. I mean, on one of the volumes I've got, it's If I Lose Myself, a Lesso remix is the first tune.
Volume 5.
That's just not a first tune, is it?
No.
That's a last tune, but then obviously it gets quite hard, and he maybe throws in like some random sort of hard style.
It gets into like Thomas Newson and things like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like Joey Dale, Maddox kind of early eras. But yeah, I always found them really odd, but that's what I liked about them, because they were just really different sort of volumes, and they were good to mix from, because there were so many tracks in there, and you had so many sort of random little acapellas that were part of it, that even if they played over a build-up, if you filter it well enough, you've got a little acapella, like the Mighty Fool's Foot Rocker acapella, like those kind of little.
Love that.
You just chuck that in somewhere, and it's brilliant. I absolutely love
their track "Lady Killer" is one of my all-time favourites. God,
I never really got onto the early Mighty Fools kind of stuff, to be honest. I mean, I like they did one not so long ago with Afrojack, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
That are really like, that's a proper kind of early set but main stagey kind of tune. Really gets like people going. But they always had that sort of mega heavy sort of approach, didn't they? And I was maybe just a little bit below that. I didn't quite go for the full on in your face kind of big room.
What would you say from sort of when you first started listening to dance music with the Prids sort of stuff, through to where you are now? What would you say the thing, what sort of subgenre, what kind of, particular sound has grabbed you the most? Is it the progressive side? Is it the big room side? Is it the more trancey side?
The constant has been like the classic progressive house sound. At no point has that dipped. Like, that has been the one that from day one, from Prids, Swedish House Mafia, Alesso, Avicii kind of introduction, that's never, my interest for that has only gone up over the years. I've had other ones sort of flirt in and out, but that's always been the constant, definitely.
Yeah, because it's funny, like, obviously you say you were, your first thing was sort of the Prids stuff. And obviously loads of people know some of his classic tracks because they were so big. But I've never, ever got into him. I don't know what it is. There's just something about it for me. It's a bit too almost techno-like, not in the sense of the sound, but the more, you've got to wait around and really wait for the build-up.
I've said this a million times. I've seen Eric Prydz good 3 times, four times maybe. Twice in Ibiza, and I think a couple of times at Creamfields in the Steelyard as well. I mean, one time I couldn't really get in, so I just sort of peered over the back. That year when it was absolutely rammed. I don't know what it was that he was doing that year, because he's got a different one every year, hasn't he? But
yeah.
He was packed out right outside the back of the Steelyard. But yeah, I saw him in High in Ibiza.
Wow.
Twice. First time I saw him, Deadmau5 supported, and I thought, this is going to be insane. It was Christoph, Deadmau5, Prids, which for me is perfect from like a progressive point of view. Christoph was great, played his kind of deep melodic kind of progressive stuff like he normally does. And then I thought, Deadmau5 is going to come out. He's only got an hour and a half set, 2 hours. He wasn't on for like a mega set. And I'm thinking, right, we're going to get heavy stuff for the first 40 minutes maybe, and then we'll get a couple of Deadmau5 classics. And it was just heavy right through. And I thought, all right, no, I get it, because he's warming up for Prids. So Prids will come out and play some, a couple of big ones early on. And we stayed for a good hour and a half. He was playing like a 4-hour set or something. Stayed for a good hour and a half, 2 hours, and he didn't drop a single tune from like the big Prids tunes era. He threw the everyday vocal in over a random sort of progressive techno kind of tune about an hour in, and I was like, is that it? I was because he's got so many, euphoric tunes, even if they're not big tunes. He's got so many euphoric ones. It was like he warmed up for himself, and I think Prids has a bit of a danger of doing that now, in that because he's gone down this whole more mysterious dark techno, look at the visuals and take it all in kind of look. he knows he can wait till the end to play all the big tunes. But I don't know, wait, it's 4 a.m. at this point, and I've just been to Ushuaia for 6 hours in the baking sun after I've been out in the day. We've been on the beach or something drinking, and I want to come in. And yeah, I've still got the energy, but not if it's going to be too. We went in the side room and watched. We went in the toilets and watched whoever was on in the toilets.
Bloody
because it was just so it was draining because I love the sort of deep brooding progressive kind of stuff. For the first couple of hours, there was no sort of build up to it. And I think Prince has got the danger of doing that. I absolutely love his music, and he's a great person. I've met him at Creamfields last year. Great guy, dead sound to talk to, really nice, very personal kind of guy. He's not like a no paparazzi, fans go away kind of geezer, you know what I mean? He's a typical sort of.
I can think of a few names when you say that.
Yeah. But I've just found his sets to be so like monotonous recently. I mean, yeah, he's not going to play "Call on Me." I'm not expecting him to, and I don't really like it as a club tune. I just think it was one of them that got me into him early on.
Yeah.
And I'm not expecting to play like the really early kind of stuff, but I expect just a couple of the big euphoric kind of ones thrown in. But because he's playing like these deep sets all the time in his Sir SD stuff. He brings that into his Eric Prydz stuff, and that sort of frustrates me a little bit because when I see Prydz, I want to see Prydz, and if I'm going to see Sir SD, I want to see Sir SD. It's if I see Axwell on his own, I expect maybe a bit more of a house infused kind of set.
Yeah.
Whereas if I see Axwell and Grosso, I'm expecting big EDM with a few random trap tunes thrown in for Seb.
Yeah.
You know what to expect, but I think Prydz has sort of strayed away from Eric Prydz. And you just get Sir SD all the time, and that doesn't sit. So I completely understand why people don't really think he's that interesting anymore, because I've lost a lot of interest in his DJ sets.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. It's not even so much that I've ever because I haven't seen him. I've had plenty of opportunities to see him because I've been at Tomorrowland 2019, 2018. I think he played both times when I was there, but I just wasn't interested. He played Creamfields twice, so I could have seen him then. It's just never grabbed me. Like the whole techno thing, I don't understand at all.
Well, that was the other thing. I saw him at Tomorrowland in 2019.
Yeah.
And it was when the Freedom Stage collapsed, so he was outside. Yeah. So he'd lost all the visuals, and he just played like a normal Eric Prydz set, and it was brilliant.
Oh, really?
I saw like half an hour of it, and it was like every day, some of the proper classic kind of Prydz kind of sounds. And I thought, why does he not know? Because he must know that the visuals carry the deepness because it sort of complements it. Right, if you lose the production, you've got to just go out there with the tunes. And, when you close in a stage at 10:30 till 12 or something, and everyone's getting ready to wind down, and this needs to be the big set of the night, he delivered. But I don't understand why. It just frustrates me that artists are becoming so dependent on visuals sometimes and production that it takes away a little bit from the sets.
Yeah. I fully agree. I think you see that across the spectrum. You've got obviously. I think the main reason we go is to listen to just great music at the end of the day. Sometimes that get lost in the massively long intros and the constant being on the mic and doing all these different things.
That's why I've never got onto DVLM, because
yeah,
I've seen DVLM twice, like where I've actually actively gone. Ushuaia, because Steve Angelo was supporting, so I thought can't miss that. Walked out after about 15 minutes of DVLM. Didn't enjoy it. It was just like Mike shouting on the mic all the time, literally the whole time. And we were just like, should we just go and get some vodka and some Fanta lemon and just go and sit on the beach and have a drink before we go in? It was before we went into Prydz. The same night, actually, it was a Tuesday night. And then Steelyard the year before.
Yeah.
Couldn't be bothered with it, just ditched it. Saw Ben Nicky before, he was all right. Saw Quintino, he was pretty good. I only went because a mate of mine sorted me out with a ticket. I wouldn't have paid to go. And I was playing at this after party afterwards. So, I wouldn't have gone to the actual event if it wasn't worth me, just turning up for the sake of listening to some tunes and maybe enjoying a couple of sets. But DVLM just drive me insane now. They just don't shut up. Just play the tunes. Like, I don't mind it on the odd sort of, 20-minute interval, just a quick spiel that, like Axwell sort of, they filter the music down a little bit sometimes, and they'll sort of do a little bit, and then they'll just crack on and play a good few tunes. It works, but it's just every tune with some people.
Yeah, and I don't think, sadly, it's difficult because there is a lot of guys out there that do it, but like you said, you go to Axwell and Grosso, you know what you're getting, you know what sound they're going to be playing through their set. You go to, Andrew Real, Big Room Trance, you know what you're getting. There's just guys that you go to and you know what you're getting. Whereas with them, it could be hard style, it could be trap, it could be some very generic big room. They've never had consistent style. That sometimes they're playing psytrance, and I'm just like,
some artists that works for, doesn't it? But like Laidback Luke, for example. But he has that essence of spontaneity that he's trying to play to the crowd. I think,
I think he's still pretty consistent in his kind of electro sound.
His overall kind of approach is pretty similar across the events, but it's more diversity and not randomness. Like DVLM have a randomness about them. But it's like they just turn up and think, oh well, playing trap and hardstyle in Liverpool at the Steelyard, for example, makes no sense. Why would you do that? I mean, Laidback Luke always tweets, never, because he plays a decent amount of trap in his normal sets. He's like, I'll never play a trap tune in Liverpool. And he said it in like conferences and stuff. He's like, oh, Liverpool, for example, you don't play trap because the crowd will all just walk out. You've got to understand that sort of demographic. And it's like, some artists just lose it. You come to the UK, we just, if you go to like DLDK in Manchester or something, and you watch W&W, they're very quiet in comparison to some of their other sets, because they'll just do like the little bits every few tunes, or the quick like clap, 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 and they're just and then they're off. It's not like the full-on abuse of the mic, because they understand that's because they're over here so much. But then you get DVLM, who are also over here all the time, and they just keep doing it. It's like they're just not interested anymore. They're just not bothered about what we want, which is why I don't see them, because I just can't get on board with that. I love the crowd control stuff. I think it looked cool.
Yeah, of course. But
not for an hour and a half.
No. This brings me on to this reminds me of like I don't know if you were there in Creamfields 2019 when they played, because obviously you had Swedish House Mafia on the other side, and they sort of crossed. But the only reason I was there seeing them is because I wanted to see Tiesto afterwards. Like, Tiesto's the god for me, so I couldn't care too much about Swedish House Mafia. I'm more Tiesto. Yeah.
But I remember walking past the set. I didn't watch it now.
Right, the DVLM one.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've never been the biggest fan of them anyway. But it became really old quickly in terms of like, okay, everyone's going to go left, right. Okay, we've done that now. Yeah. And then they start doing a new one. Everyone go front, back. I'm like, fuck me, we're going to, twirl around like ballerinas next. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I just lose all interest for that kind of stuff. It's cool when you're coming into music, I think, when you first festival. I mean, I've watched it from the back a couple of times. Like Hardwell's done it. Hardwell did it in 2017.
Yeah.
I was down eating Chinese, waiting to go and watch Martin Garrix or something. I was just eating a chow mein, and you know what Hardwell's like. You could hear him from 10 miles away because he's down the mic, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I thought, oh, this looks class. I wouldn't necessarily want to be right in the middle of it, but it looked class, and I appreciate how it really does work. Mm-hmm. But don't milk it. You can have too much of a good thing, can't you? And I think DVLM are too much of what was a good thing. The madness and tremor kind of era is so long gone now, and they're just making like psytrance remixes of Pink tunes. Like what a downfall that is. But yet they still pay their way up to DJ Mag's top 3 pretty much every year. So they're getting
that's an insult
everywhere.
Yeah,
it's such a weird industry. But then you kind of love it, don't you?
But things like that really make you like, ugh, like it's gross because you don't even see Steve Angelo in the top 100, and you just think they're number 3.
Yeah.
What?
You see people like, like Oliver Heldens, for example, who I think has had an incredible year in that he's released loads of really good music, but he's done a live stream on a barge in Amsterdam. He's done one in a concert hall dressed as a conductor. He's really gone out. He's done one at the Dutch F1 track. He's proper gone for it this year, and he's a non-mover in the top 100. I mean, David Guetta was always going to win. That was a given.
Where did he come? Because I noticed that he came first in the 1001 track list thing.
Guetta?
No. Heldens.
Oh, I think he came 6th, but he came 6th last year.
Right.
He didn't move, but he came in the same position both years. But yeah, I mean, he's the most supported. He does a lot of sets himself and plays all his own music, so he's automatically going to bump himself up through doing that. But which touring artist isn't doing a weekly radio show with their own music in? Who isn't doing live? Garrix did a few live streams with pretty much all his own or all of the the Stamp label tunes. There was no sort of random stuff. It was all so they've all got the opportunity to bump their numbers up. But Heldens gets such good support elsewhere as well because his music's quite infectious, isn't it? It's quite, love Future House or hate, he's still got that kind of core catchiness to it.
I think what he does is just brilliant because he finds that sort of balance perfectly of being able to get tracks on the radio, but also stay, stay good enough for EDM heads like me and yourself.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his Hilo alias as well, where he can really go out on the deeper stuff and the heavy kind of more techno-infused stuff, which I think is wise because he's sort of in a similar position as I would be if I really honed in on one sound like Future House, or like Progressive House. If you fully go and do a Progressive House alias, and then you want to start making bass house, for example, the complete contrast to each other. So rather than just sort of overload, whereas you've got DVLM who will overload with millions of genres, but it doesn't sort of work. Certain artists need to go on, because he's got such like Heldens, for example, has got such a distinct name for Future House that going and making this other alias was a wise thing to do, whereas other artists can kind of lend it. But I think he's really nailed the sort of approach to it because he's got such a an identity about him. I couldn't believe it when he didn't move. I thought I had him nailed on top 3. I thought Armin should probably be right. Garrix has in the last, up until that track that he put out with Tovlo, he hadn't put anything out in 8 months under the Garrix name. He's doing the Y-Tram stuff, but he's sort of just fallen off a little bit, and he's still right up there. DVLM is still right up there, and I just found it a bit weird this year because I think he's really been sort of the most consistent artist in the last year.
Yeah, music's took a really weird journey over the past couple of years, maybe 2-3 years, because you've seen so many guys all of a sudden come out with an alias where, you look back at when me and you were younger, when we first got into Hardwell on Air, there's no such thing as an alias. Yet now you've got David Guetta with Jack Back, you've got W&W, you've got New Year, Afrojack has just started one, obviously Martin Garrix with Y-Tram. It just goes on and on. You got Hilo, you got tons of different ones, and it's it's interesting. I wonder if they're doing it because they're genuinely interested in having a different sound that's separate from what they're known for on their main name, or what's the motivation behind it?
Well, like with the Garrix one, it's a complete shift in sound. So I understand it, because Garrix is big room progressive festival main stage closer. Y-Tram is club night opener. They're a complete contrast. But then he's going to release a deep housey kind of infused one as Martin Garrix. So that's, in the last few weeks, has made me sort of question what the sort of approach is with it, because it's all well and good in putting a random sort of prog tune out with Matisse and Sadko that they produce 75% of every year, which is great. But then if you're going to create an alias, keep your house stuff on the alias and keep your EDM kind of stuff on Martin Garrix. But so the alias sort of thing, sometimes it really works, and it's good to see this sort of separation because they clearly want to do a couple of different things and don't want to be constrained by being Martin Garrix or, like with Guetta. And he throws, I'm expecting him to throw a few Jack Back tunes in the mix, but then I wouldn't expect Jack Back to put out a future rave tune.
No.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes if you're going to do the separation, you've got to separate it, and you've got to put whatever you're putting out on that name, you've got to put out there. Because Garrix is one where I've just got a bit confused on what he's trying to do now, because he's putting a deeper tune out as Martin Garrix when he's created a full alias for that. So it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it might be a label thing. It might be because he's got a big vocalist like Tove Lo on it, who's obviously got a good history in dance music with Habits and Heroes and, all them kind of tunes that maybe she sort of wanted. They wanted it to be collectively a bigger push on the Garrix name, but if you're going to create an alias for that sound, put that sound on the alias. It's really odd. I think it's taken a weird turn, like you said.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I've noticed as well, is like how so many different guys and labels are taking just such hard left turns. Like, the reason I got into being such a massive fan of Revealed is, like you say, for the Joey Dale, the Julian Color, Kill the Buzz, all that stuff back in the day. And then now it's all like 125 stuff, and it's like,
Revealed's taken a weird turn, hasn't it?
What the fuck? It's all like shit you'd expect Charmy Marla to play.
I honestly think maybe I'm quite obsessive with my Spotify in that every Friday at midnight I'm on the release radar and like the new tunes. And I honestly do like a new music playlist every single month, and I reckon I could go through the last 6 months of playlists, and there's maybe one Revealed tune in each one, maybe two maximum. There's some guys called like Vez Bros or something. Something like that, and they're putting out some decent tunes, but I really can't get on board with it at the minute.
There's one guy on there that I like, Castian.
Future House. Like a future bassy kind of electro.
Yeah.
Like a bit of fusion kind of thing.
He had his track Goddess. That was class. I like that.
I've come across some of this. Like Jack and Harry, they're all right, but
yeah.
Their music gets a bit samey sometimes, if you're not careful.
They haven't released for a while, I don't think, though, have they?
They put some really good tunes out in 2018-19, I think.
Yeah.
Might have been 2019 when they first came, and they were really getting some traction, and all the tunes do well. And I really like the sound, but sometimes you want to see. I mean, they did like a housey kind of one on that Gemstone Records or whatever it's called, that Revealed offcut. And it was cool, but I sort of want to see like, just a bit more sort of diversity from some of the artists, because they've got these really consistent names like, Maddix, for example, who's took a complete career path change, randomly decided to start making like techno big room.
I haven't. I listened to. I think he put out a track yesterday. Did he? Or
I don't know. I didn't see that one. But he's put out some really like heavy kind of stuff. But then he sort of flicked back into the. He's like sort of moved back into the big room sort of stuff. And I just find it really odd. Like, it's like he's gone for a career change and gone, right, old Maddix of big room main stage, hands in the air kind of shit, is pre-2019. And now I'm going to go down this more thumping club route,
right?
Which is cool, but then he's sort of thrown a couple of big room tunes back out there,
right?
When you just sort of look at things and you listen to a tune and you think, oh yeah, Maddix's new tune, it's going to be like a really heavy techno-y kind of big room tune. It's going to, like that Will Sparks kind of approach where it's like it's techno, but it's like commercial, cheesy, big roomy sort of techno. If you're a techno fan, but if you're a big room fan, it's like really heavy big room. And you sort of expect that, and then you go and listen to it and you're like, oh, he's making big room again, or he's making psytrance now, or he's doing this, and there's a few artists like that I just think have really not gone off the boil, but I don't know whether it's like a bit of an identity crisis or something, or because they fully state, I'm changing into this sound, and then they go back to the old sound. Whereas if you say, oh, this is an EP that I'm throwing out there that's got this new style that I've really enjoyed working on through lockdown.
Mm.
Hope you like it. Not, you know, you're not professing yourself to be a different kind of producer then. You know, you're just sort of experimenting with something, which I think people get on board with. But I just find it really odd that, you know, it's the same thing with the aliases. You say you're going to go and do something, and then you just go and flip back to the old stuff.
Mm. I got into him really because I think he put out a track on Reveal Volume 3, Riptide. I
Yeah.
loved that, and it was so like original to me. I'd never heard anything like it, and haven't really since. But he never quite did it for me after that again. Like it was just this one track that was really unique, and then afterwards, like I think a couple of the Hardwell collabs he did and things like that.
Yeah.
It was a bit more just basic big room, sort of, you know, jump up and down and
Yeah.
kind of
Which is good at the right times, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's good. It works in the Hardwell set
Mm.
because Hardwell sets have them kind of progressions that he's going to play some generic big room, but he's going to round it out with some other sort of stuff.
Mm.
Whereas, you know, if a certain, you know, yeah, I know what you mean. They can they sort of get lost a little bit, don't they? These kind of artists, in that they just try and be too keeping to the classic sound sometimes.
Mm.
Like that's why I think people have realised with progressive that old sort of really old kind of Seek Bromance era sound is never going to be exactly the same now. So they've sort of tried to bring a newer version of it, which has completely shifted it. Whereas with Big Room, there's still people trying to make like 2012 Blasterjaxx Big Room tunes. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of early Big Room sound. And I like the whole Big Room Never Dies, Prog is Alive, all that kind of, you know, bang on. But there's got to be some evolution of it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I'm not saying ditch the old stuff. I'm just saying, like, if you're a new producer coming in now, don't just make old Big Room, because that's been, you know, these other producers have spent years making their name off that old Big Room to now go and bring something different, bring something new. You know, if you're a producer, bring something that's going to represent what you want to see the industry evolve into, rather than what you enjoyed listening to when you were 13, 14. You know, I'm not going to go and make Origin Nielsen trance tunes from 2012.
No.
Because that's not what I think the industry will be listening to in 3 years. And if I'm going to make a tune now, I want people to be listening to it in a few years.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, people have got to keep in mind that obviously it's always evolving, but you've got to bring something fresh, because people just ain't going to grab onto it, because the person that you're sort of, you know, copying, they're just going to go and listen to that person's stuff because they're known for it and they've been doing it longer.
Yeah.
I really, really rate, like, it probably started, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago. The kind of, and I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it's 150 BPM Big Room. So you've got like Maurice West did a few. I think Quintino's done a couple.
They're kind of branding it as like a rave room sort of thing, aren't they now? Like the Orange Kings kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like a lot of stuff that's on that. What's W&W's label called now? Rave Culture.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that kind of. Yeah, I can't really get on board with that personally.
Really?
Yeah, Big Room for me is 130 max. You know, if I wanted to listen to 150, I'd probably go into hardstyle then, because with that shit, I like those tunes. You know, I like the Maurice West kind of stuff in a set, but I wouldn't actively go and listen to it at home. Do you know what I mean? If I was going to play like a Big Room set, I'd probably throw a couple in there, but it's not something I'd actively go and listen to, because for me, the Big Room stuff that I want to listen to is EDM speed, because I don't typically play a Big Room set, so I'd put Big Room in with EDM. So for me to put a 150 tune in, I'd have to go at the end. But at the end is where I like to play the big progressive kind of anthem. You know, that big last closer. Whereas, you know, maybe for yourself and like other Big Room DJs, because you're more Big Room orientated, aren't you?
Yeah.
Those 150 tunes are the perfect closer, because it's big energy, big volume, big speed. You know, everything about it's just got that sort of oomph that you want to finish a set with, or maybe throw in there randomly. You know, it doesn't sit with what I'm trying to do. So I've never really caught onto it, but I know that it's really growing, isn't it? it's getting up there.
Yeah, it's difficult because there's a bit of a split for me in the sense that obviously you'll always have the diehard WNW fans and the diehard big room fans that will listen to anything, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I think there's two types of what sort of has come out of the past few years of big room with rave culture, because you've got like Maurice West did a remix of Anywhere, Anyplace, Anytime, and that's 150 BPM, but it's like a big room. That is like super heavy big room, and I love that. Quintino did did a
He's done a
reveal.
few EPs, doesn't he, Quintino? A few decent EPs that have been like the Go Harder EPs that were on spinning a few. That sort of phased in that kind of 150 kind of.
Well, he did a remix of a Revealed track, Something About You. I forgot what the name of it is now, but it's like Something About You, and then it's like ba 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 da, ba. And it's like 150 BPM big room. But you've got that, which I love, but then you've got the other stuff that rave culture are doing, and a lot of like WW type people are doing, which is the happy hardcore at like 160, and that just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like big room artists that do happy hardcore.
No.
Because I don't like it. Sort of sounds cheesy. I like happy hardcore in Darren Styles and Gamma and Kutski and all that kind of, you know, the traditional big sort of hardcore kind of sound. But I don't like this. Sometimes crossovers just don't work.
No.
And that's just one that I can't really get on board with. You know, like I didn't mind the W&W Darren Styles Long Way Down or whatever it was called. That was all right because it's still very Darren Stylesy. Whereas you get some that are just, it's like they just sped up a big room tune and just slightly changed the beat.
I think it was all born out of that track, because that was the first one that was sort of played. I think it was 2017 Tomorrowland they played it at, and then after that it just grew and grew and grew.
They did another one, didn't they? The Light, which was like a weird sort of
AI Kazuna,
which I don't mind as a tune, but those early ones were all right. And I remember, I mean, you were probably there. I think it was 2018, April 2018. Go Hardwell or Go Home in Manchester, Victoria Warehouse, and W&W. It was the one where Hardwell was late,
and W ran late.
Because he was playing in London and he was flying up or something, and they threw a load in that set, and they worked really well. But I think maybe some, you know, if certain artists if W&W do it, that's great. But just because they're like the head of that label doesn't mean you have to go and do it. But then it gets oversaturated because you've got loads of people getting signed to rave culture doing this same kind of sound, like you said, and it's just it just doesn't really stick. Right?
No, I think there's a few guys that have been consistent, and I've loved pretty much every track they've put out. Namely, probably Arston is one of the guys I respect the most. Like every single track I've heard of his is just wow, it blows my mind. But Sandro Silva's always been really consistent for me, in the sense that like from day one, you know, the track that we've all know that got us into him was probably Symphony. And then all the way up to now, with the stuff that he's doing with his collabs with W&W and like Sabres collab and things like that.
You still hear him. You still hear him sort of every now and then bring out the little epic pluck. The whoop whoop.
Yeah.
Because he did that one with DVLM, didn't he? Was it called like Raverdome or something? There was, I think it was DVLM, Sandro Silva, and like Kevu or someone random like that.
Well released, was it?
It was on. No, it was on. It was out. It was out recently on Rave Culture. It's called Raverdome or something. It might have been a 3R Legend one actually. I can't really remember, but it's just got this this mini sort of. It's with Sandro Silva, and the only Sandro Silva bit you hear in it is the drop is like heavy kind of big room, and just in that last half a bar, you just get a boop boop. Like, but that makes me like the tune straight away, because it's got that Sandro Silva identity to it. There was one that I was trying to find the other day, and I couldn't remember if it was Sandro Silva, but it had like a pirate theme. I think it was on Armada, around 2015 maybe, and it had like a pirate theme to it, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. It might not have been Sandro Silva, but that sort of era of big room where, you know, you've got people like Arsene, who was making like more of a prog sort of infused, but still very big room. You know, he brings some really good melodies into it, but then you've got Sandro Silva, who brings that, you know, that traditional kind of big room sound. It's so like prominent, and you know, that kind of era, you've got like those names on Revealed, but they're not just like, you know, random label names. They are the identity of what Revealed was back in the day. You know, Sandro Silva, you know, those kind of Alvaro, what Mercer in his old sort of big room life. You know, those kind of names are the ones that you know you stick with. So Sandro Silva, completely agree with you. He's like one that's just been there throughout all of it.
I mean, it's funny because Mercer's an odd one when I look at like how he's changed. Because like last night I think it was it last night or some night, I was playing one of his tracks in one of my mixes, Therapy.
Yeah.
And that is like so like when the drop hits, you're like, oh my god! And then you listen to like his stuff nowadays. Like, have you heard like Satisfy?
French disco kind of.
Yeah, it's like groovy. And you're like, how is this the same person?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Mercer a couple of years ago at Warehouse Project, and it was so random. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because he played his disco-y stuff, and he was playing for Charmy. He was playing before Charmy, so he was playing like all the sort of disco-y kind of housey stuff warm up, and then all of a sudden you get an old Mark Knight tune that had like the old Avicii kind of, you know, when Mark Knight and Toolroom used to be that Avicii sound with like Wolfgang Gartner and all that kind of era.
Yeah.
And then Bird Flu by Tom Starr and Corey James. And I was like, you know, he's gone from house and disco into some big groovy, big roomy kind of electro-y sort of era.
Right.
And then flicked it into some bass house, and then Charmy comes on. And so you sort of see this artist in Mercer who has had such a weird progression. I mean, it's the same with DJ Snake, isn't it? They've both had such weird progressions in that they just went from being big room artists to, you know, DJ Snake arguably being the biggest solo artist in the dance music scene in the world, in that he can fill, you know, I think he's sold the biggest gig ever in India, which is like, because Hardwell had a couple of huge ones, didn't he? But I think Snake eclipsed it and had a bigger one. He just sells out everywhere and everything because he's just so infectious now. But it's just weird to see these guys. They used to do big room tunes on Revealed, and now they're absolute world beaters in completely different genres.
Well, I don't think DJ Snake's ever been big room, has he?
Yeah. I swear he had a couple early on.
He's to me, he's always been either trap and then obviously the charty stuff, and now he's doing like the French bass house.
Let me have a quick. There's one tune that seems to stick out in my mind that he did a couple of big room kind of ones early on. I might be thinking of somebody else. Lunatic. With Mercer on Revealed, on Spinning, sorry, not Revealed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not typically big room, but
more like electro, isn't it?
Yeah, that kind of. But Snake sort of came from, obviously he had Turn Down for What and Bird Machine, which were like the big sort of trappy ones, and Get Low. But he also had this big room side to him, is what I was sort of, getting towards. And he's gone from that to big kind of global superstar, and now he's I just find it really odd that these artists have been on Spinning and Revealed, and you get some really weird ones coming out of nowhere, don't you? That 10 years down the line, if you look at some of these artists now, 10 years down the line, they could be making, Tropical House could come back around and playing piano at Coachella. You never know, do you? It's just so weird at the minute.
Yeah. Well, he's an odd one, DJ Snake, in the sense that obviously, like, I think it was the same. You was there weekend 2, 2019 Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
But I was there on the Saturday night at the main stage, and I think it was DVLM, and then he closed it after them. And it was really odd, like listening to obviously him with such heavy trap stuff, and then the other night I'm flicking through my YouTube videos and I see him and Marla doing a bass house set, and I'm like,
yeah, it's weird.
like,
Like he's another one that he's really odd. Like he's got these strong Parisian kind of roots.
yeah,
From like the sort of not the slums, but like the rougher sort of area of Paris.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's mad that people come out of that kind of background and region, and he's like I said, arguably one of the biggest, touring wise. He closes pretty much everything now, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, you look at it now, like, I think, back in the day, you could argue that the Americans have had some real powerhouses in EDM, and, obviously the Dutch have always been in control, and the Swedes have had some amazing superstars, but I think right now it's the French that are doing the thing. You've got Guetta, you've got the whole, pardon my French stuff with Snake, Marla, Mercer. It's just one thing after another with the French. It's unreal.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
It's nuts how much is coming out of there. Crikey, that was almost almost an hour of diversion from my second question to ask.
Yeah, that's a long one.
Because what I wanted to do was sort of get to understand how you obviously started learning to DJ, and then how you got to your first gig.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I had a bit of a weird sort of way into it in that sense. My first gig is very different to what I refer to as my first. My first gig, in my eyes, is the first event I got booked for properly. Whereas I played like 18th birthday sort of stuff.
Let's go to it. First gig, 18th birthday. Explain.
Well, got a MacBook for my Mac laptop for my 16th birthday. I'd saved up for months and months, and I think I paid like 600 for it. And my mum put in like the other 350 as like the Christmas birthday present for that year, for my 16th being like the big one at the time. So I got this laptop, which I've still got now. So I used to have that in school all the time, and I used to like try and make stuff on GarageBand and have virtual DJ and all that kind of stuff. And people sort of clocked onto it a little bit. And people knew that I was like massively. I was always known as like the resident kind of EDM know-it-all in my school. Every school's got someone who's like dead into EDM. I was like that person. That everyone knew it. Yeah. Anything that they ever saw in the news about like Avicii, they'd come up to me like, "Oh, have you heard about this about Avicii?" And he was proper like full on.
Get the download.
I had no problem with it because I just loved the music anyway, and I got a couple of people sort of into it and sort of push people sort of down that line a little bit. And I remember we were in BTEC Sport, and I always used to, when I done my work, I put my headphones on and I just like work on some mixes on my my laptop, because I was doing like the initial sort of music phase then. I was just looking earlier, actually. The first mashup I ever put on SoundCloud was 5 years ago at the end of this month.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think, because it doesn't feel like I've been, doing it that long. But back then I was doing all like future house kind of stuff, and it was completely different. But I had like the first sort of podcast mix series back then. So I'd work on that and stuff. And the teachers caught onto it, and like students caught onto it, and all this kind of stuff. And then one day, the teacher was like, "Oh, you just crack on and get on with what you're doing." So we put some music on through like the school monitor. So what I'd do naturally is find two tunes that I knew were the same BPM and try and mix them on YouTube by pressing play at the right time and just fading the volumes in and out. And everyone's like, "Oh, you're doing that?" And then obviously I was bringing my laptop in, and people clocked on that I was doing it on my laptop. So then it became a thing that, because I was quite quick at doing my work in sport, in like the classroom, because I was like really onto it, I'd have loads of free time. I'd get my laptop out and I'd plug it in to the projector speakers directly with like an aux lead and essentially DJ from my laptop in BT Sport every Friday afternoon. It became a thing. And like the name Parts came from school, from football. Because everyone gets a nickname, you know, like a shortened sort of, you just get told, you just get named by your surname a lot of the time with sports teachers. And Partington is quite a long surname. Yeah. So, you know, I just got Parts, and it just stuck. And it's like, oh, Parts is DJ. You know, even the teachers were all like, oh, you're right, Parts. Like, and then it just sort of became a thing. So and other people sort of caught onto it. And there was, you know, one of the lads in the sport class, he was like, oh, I'm having my 18th. This was like a year and a bit later. He was like, you know, it's my 18th soon. Do you fancy coming in do you fancy DJing for my 18th? I was like, yeah, sound. Whatever, it's fine. Because like I said, my dad had decks, so I didn't use his decks, but I used like the mixer and the amp and the speakers and stuff, took it all down to the local football clubs, like the sort of hospitality kind of bit in my hometown. And my first gig was to like 100 and something people in this football club, you know. It was absolutely fraught with issues. Nothing from my point of view. Didn't botch a mix all night. Played for 9 hours. Played from because I got there at like 5, set up and just put some tunes on, and I was still going till like I think about 1:45. So it was about 9 hours. Yeah, it's pretty long. Somebody spilt a drink. It was like like the old sort of amps with like the knobs on the front and the grill on the top and all that kind of stuff. And somebody spilt a drink into the grill. So slowly throughout the night, it started corroding away. Oh God! Yeah. So it cut out at one point, and we managed to like cool it down and sort of get it all going again. But I've been booked for another one the week after, another 18th, and on the second week, after about 3 or 4 hours, it blew completely. This amp, it just went. You know, because it was my dad's. Yeah.
Oh God!
So the gig money that I'd made from the 2 weeks.
Oh.
Which I didn't charge. I charged 70 quid for each one. So I just thought, do it cheap.
Yeah.
Because there were a couple of mates, get the name out a little bit, and then people will start asking for it. And, you know, I did get quite a few requests after that for it. But I wasn't prepared to go and buy all the equipment because I didn't want to use my dad's every week and just pay him when it got broke because people are spilling dark fruits into my dad's 20-year-old amp, you know. So that was the initial sort of gig. But then I came to uni and got my first proper gig, which was in Manchester, playing for Dancing Panda, which is, you know, obviously, you know, you had Graham on last week, didn't you?
Yeah.
He was like one of the residents there.
Oh, right, okay.
I met him through that. That was my first proper gig. I supported Culture Code, who were Brummies as well.
Yeah.
They were on. I played first set to my mates and a couple of other people, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my first proper gig, and I got that gig. And this maybe is my sort of message to any producer or DJ who ever asks, "Oh, what did you do to get to this?" or "What did you do here?"
Mm-hmm.
I got that gig by sending a promo mix that I recorded on Virtual DJ. I'd never touched a pair of CDJs in my life before that. I went to Pirate Studios a couple of days before to just have an hour just to sort of see what they were.
Yeah.
And I recorded this mix, but because I'd spent 3 years on Virtual DJ,
wow,
I knew it like the back of my hand. So I could make a mix. I'd recorded it on deck through Virtual DJ.
Wow.
And I obviously I put loads of like mashups and edits and, you know, all these kind of random sort of tunes in there that maybe another sort of, you know, younger DJs might not do, because I was trying to think as far out of the box as possible whilst not thinking too abstract. And also bearing in mind that I'd be playing a relatively early set.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I got that gig and managed to get another gig with him to support Tom Starr a couple of months later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my first gig, my first 4 or 5 gigs, because I got that gig and I'd sent another promo mix to somebody else, and the first one was on the Thursday, and then I got another gig for the same Saturday, back home. So I'd gone from Sheffield to Manchester, back to Sheffield, then went to Darwin, where I'm from, and did a house set at 12 o'clock in the afternoon for a charity event for an hour and a half. And that was like my first sort of gig. But I'd sent that promo mix through Virtual DJ.
Wow.
It's just my sort of thing has always been, you don't have to have loads and loads of like posh equipment and all this kind of stuff. Like I've now got the entry level controller, like the RX or the RB or whatever it's called, like the 250 quid one, and I do all my mixes, all my radio shows, everything like that on there. But just know the gear that you've got, know every single button, know all what you have, and you could definitely get a gig out of it. You know, if there is a little bit of a timing element, but you know, you've got to send a mix at the right time and maybe pester a little bit and make sure that they hear it. But at the time, I had barely any social media following. You know, I just said, you know, this is what I'm about. This is what I like to play. It'd be great if you can book me. If there's an issue with the mix or there's something that would make you not want to book me, please tell me what it is, and I'll sort of, you know, learn from it and move on from here, kind of thing. And that's sort of where actual gigs, rather than just parties, you know, actual proper gigs started for me. But it was all through shit equipment, you know, virtual DJ. I don't even have a mouse or anything, so it's not like I can really, it's just all on my keypad here in front of me. It was just knowing the shortcuts. I mixed the entire thing in key. Wow. So even if you do cock up a little bit, it's in key, so no one's really going to notice that much. I mean, it was all beat matched anyway. Even if you know, because you've got to put one bass down and one bass up, but you've only got one mouse, so essentially you've got to get the timing perfectly. Right. But if it didn't work, and sometimes you had a couple of basses in at the same time by accident, it doesn't matter because they're in key. They don't clash too much, so you've got the time to then fix it. You know, I sort of thought about all this sort of meticulous kind of stuff, but because I knew the equipment that I had, I managed to get a gig out of it, and I got the next 4 or 5 before I got a controller. This was like September, November. I got 4 or 5 weeks period, and then I got a controller, and then actually started doing proper mixes on, you know, proper gear. But before that, and I was playing on CDJs for all the events that I played on once, but because of my vinyl knowledge and my knowledge of virtual DJ and the buttons and how they all sort of sync up, I found it really easy. It's just knowing the gear. I sat on Google, looked at the pictures of CDJs and the descriptions of what every single button does, and just tried to work it out. And that's, you know, it's a weird sort of way into it, but it's just a case of I'm proper sort of a bit of a nerd with. I'm very particular with certain things. I really like mixing in key, because I like the flow of the set. So I'm really sort of particular about that. I'm really particular about set orders, and I'm very like meticulous about it. I really think it through quite a lot. And some people like just throwing a mix together. I think, you know, if you're a new DJ, really think about what you're playing, because if they book you, that's your identity. That's what they know you for then. But if you don't get booked, it might be because you've launched loads of random tunes in that everyone else is playing. You know, if you chuck a Fisher tune in or a Calvin Harris tune into a mix these days, you're pretty much writing yourself off early on. You don't want people who can just play the same that everyone else is playing. You've got to do something different. And I put some really random sort of tunes in there that I don't think people have really heard, because I've gone sifting through YouTube and Beatport and SoundCloud and everything else. You know, and that's sort of how I got my first party gig and then my first gig. You know, they're both sort of mad stories, really. But I wouldn't change anything.
No. I mean, that's one of the plus sides of being an EDM geek, is that, you know, we've got so many. Even though there's so many subgenres out there, and there's a lot that I don't like, there's so many that I do like, that I have a real quite diverse taste. Like, obviously, when gigs are back on, and the gigs that I played previously, my main sound is big room. I will play occasionally progressive and things like that, but for the most part, it's either, you know, heavy electro or big room. But I'll also be starting a new project as well, where I'm going to be playing more sort of groovy stuff. So, you know, your Kryder, Sunnery, James Ryan
Yeah,
Marciano,
yeah,
Slash, and Juna Deep and Juna Beats kind of stuff also.
yeah. See, that's my sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So
And so
like,
I'm
I
doing
remember in
that.
that first, like, just the one of the things that stood out. I remember is that I did a mashup of UI by Armin and Sonny James and Ryan Marciano
Mhm.
and Reload. I pitched one of them up. I think I pitched UI up, and obviously it's got that big sort of groovy bit,
Mhm.
and then it has like a kind of breakdown where you get the you are sexy, you are sweet,
Yeah, yeah.
and I put the dun 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 dun, dun like the started the breakdown into that,
Uh-huh.
and then looped the vocal and blended Reload in, and you know you've gone from groove into progressive there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you know, like if you're bringing sort of like Anjuna Deep and Kryder and all this kind of stuff together,
Mm.
there's so much you can do with that, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, people don't think to do it, and that's
No.
what you need to try and do random shit like that to try and set you apart.
Mm.
Completely sort of weird stuff.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, that is like you say. That things like that is what will get you gigs. I mean, the thing that when I started off, the main thing that I wanted to be known for is bringing the mainstream crowd into dance music and loving it the way that I did. Because when I started off listening to music, I was like 6, 7, 8. Probably through to when I was about 10. I was listening to like a lot of rap music because like that's what people were listening to, you know, in
Yeah,
early 2000s, you know, 2004, 5, 6. And so I randomly found just flicking through YouTube videos. I think it
yeah,
was a Tiesto track initially, and then I started listening to this other track that I remember quite well. But it's just um, like I say, I've always been into the big room electro side of things, but then it really does help if you can kind of um, you know, delve
yeah,
outside of just that one thing. Like a lot of guys that I know, a lot of my mates, um, they love trap and dubstep, and that's all they'll do.
yeah,
And they just won't even open up to anything else. Same with like tech house and techno people. They're just not interested in anything else. It's just techno, techno, techno. It's like you got to widen your spectrum a bit, or else there's 101 other guys out there competing for the same gig as you, doing what you're doing. You got
yeah,
to
exactly.
widen it out a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you know, I've got such a sort of again sort of a weird approach in that. In the, like I said, the constant for me has always been the progressive sort of sound, but I started off doing future house mashups,
Mm.
and I sort of came through with this future house, future bounce kind of sound. And as a result of that, even after going back to the progressive stuff in like 2018, middle of 2018, I brought like 3 or 4 prog ones out within a couple of months, and they like shot up straight away. And I thought I'd not put anything up for about a year. I thought the reaction would be really shit because obviously I'd not really done anything. And they went pretty, you know, reasonably well. Like one of them's now on like nearly 11,000, I think, on SoundCloud, and the other ones are on like 6 or 7,000 plays. So they've done well for, you know, for a SoundCloud mashup. They've done well.
Absolutely.
But then I ended up getting booked in April 2019 for a bass house set of people who knew me and had been to these parties that I DJ'd in the past and heard me play the housey kind of stuff, and then gone on my SoundCloud and realised, oh, you used to play like the future housey stuff.
Mm. I lost you.
Hmm.
Ah,
Good.
got you back.
Yeah.
Lost you for a moment there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I got booked to play this full-on bass house French kind of infused set. I was playing like full-on Charmy, Brohug, Marla, all that sort. That was throwing in sort of my elements.
Yeah.
I did the mashup of "Breathe" by Camel Fat into Valentino Khan, "Deep Down Low," and it sort of build it up, and then just obviously sort of filter it a little bit, and then "Deep Down Low" thrown in there. You know, I had in there mashed up with "Snake" by Sick Dope, like these sort of weird, but it still had a bit of what I do now, but brought back. You know, I've created two completely separate identities, but phased them through and gone with something completely different now. But like now, I'm fully doing the proggy sort of stuff. But like, you know, like that kind of stuff that you mentioned then, like the Anjuna Beats sort of stuff, is really where I'm going with it now. But you know, like there's certain people who are just like so narrow with the genres. There's no point in being narrow-minded with genres. Like, yeah, fair enough, you might mainly listen to tech house, but that doesn't mean that all other genres are shit. Like, you get so many techno people who are like, oh, why do you listen to EDM? It's still 2013. Like, well, it's because you're watching techno here on a little side stage whilst Martin Garrix is closing the main stage. Not that 13, because everyone's seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when people say that, because obviously, you know, I think a lot of the techno crowd, obviously, techno started getting big in the 90s and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you hear them go, oh, it's so 2013, 2012. It's like, hey, you're the 90s. What are you on about? Yeah. It's hilarious hearing things like that. But I wanted to kind of delve into you a bit more. So what would you say is a highlight moment from, say, your favorite gig? What is like a
that attended or played
that you played? What's like one moment that stands out to you where like it might have been your favorite gig, or it might have just been a real special moment?
I've enjoyed, and a lot, you know, a lot of DJs will say this and won't mean it, but I've thoroughly enjoyed every single gig, regardless of how many people have been there. I've been doing the Parts and Friends like radio kind of show, mix series sort of thing for a few years now, and we decided, me and a few mates, that we were going to try and set up an event company to and use this as the platform, you know, use Parts and Friends as the platform for the events, because obviously I'd already built up a decent sort of thing to sort of have. And our event company is called The Event. It's simple, it's straight to the point. Because we don't want to, we're not constrained by any kind of genre, then we can go and do what we want with it. But we just said, right, let's do The Event presents Parts and Friends. Let's find a good time to do it. So we found Alesso was playing in London a couple of years ago, 2019, I think.
Okay.
In June sometime. We were like, right, that's on at 7, but people travel down to London. They go, you know, they don't just go for that event. They go for the day or the weekend. So we're like, right, pre-party, let's do that. Let's get some, you know, let's get some proggy names in, people who like, you know, this kind of Alesso sound. Let's get people, you know, who can set up for that. So obviously because it was Parts and Friends, I played the closing set. I got Farius down, who is now sort of one of the Enhanced Progressive's biggest sort of names, and obviously Enhanced is out of Tritonal, and they're sort of huge everywhere. So he's sort of like the main name on that. He came down and did like a special guest half-hour set. Pete K, who's obviously quite big in like the third party kind of circles. So the perfect kind of warm-up for a prog night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was, you know, I got a lad that we met at one of the release pre-parties. He was like a proper nice down-to-earth lad, Samuel, he's called. So he came down, he played a set. A couple of like our sort of resident kind of names that we've sort of developed, and we had it on a rooftop, open sort of terraced balcony bar overlooking the Thames, like right next to the Thames. Well, obviously you'll know London from Ministry. Do you know where Doggett's Coat and Badge is?
Say that again.
Doggett's Coat and Badge. It's I think it's near.
Is it near like Tower Bridge?
South. One of the souths. What's it? South. Which one is it? Not Southwark. It's not. It's about a 5 minutes walk from the Globe, from Shakespeare's. You know, the Shakespeare Globe. if you sort of know whereabouts that is. I
Yeah, yeah.
can't remember. But it's like this iconic sort of venue from like the boating sort of era or something.
Right,
And
right.
we hired out the top of it. And there was like a private bar. We had the DJs inside and like the speakers on. And then outside there's like a terrace with like, and it was a belting hot day. It was like 25 degrees or something at like midday. We got Pete K over from France to come play, Farius in to play. And then I played like the closing set. And it's become like a thing for our events that I close with Together by Third Party. I don't know if you know the tune.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's got that sort of vocal every time that we're together. And everyone's sort of like hugging and singing it and like big sort of euphoria about it. And we just had this massive closing moment and this sort of sense of achievement that, we've put this event together. We sold enough to break even on the day, well, the night before we shut the tickets off, and we were like, oh shit, we're 20 tickets down here, and suddenly we just got a massive influx of ticket sales from people who would go into this Alesso event who came along. We got a massive sort of influx last minute, broke it, because the plan was to donate any profits anyway, and we only made like 20 quid profit, so we donated that along with like some other donations that we got. We ended up donating I think about 90 quid, 100 quid. But we broke even, which was good because we didn't lose any money. The intention was never to make any money. It was never, and that's all our events are non-profit. We don't make any money off any of them. But it was just sort of this essence of getting people together and give them more than just an Alesso set. Let's give them a day of it, bring people together, and sort of give this sort of message that every time that we are together, we'll have a class time and it'll be brilliant. And I played that. And it all went off. And it was brilliant. It was incredible. And then the one last song, it all went quiet, and we started turning the CDJs off. But we left one on, and the mixer on. I can't remember what it was now that I played. I think it was In My Mind.
Wow.
The Axwell mix.
Yeah.
And I just faded it in on the like the wah, as it kind of like rises in. And then just as everyone's getting ready to go out the door, we had just this like one last check, and the sort of satisfaction. I love playing sets where I've been booked for, because it's great, because I don't have to do all the work. I just do the set and enjoy the set. But the satisfaction that came with building this brand of Parts and Friends and doing the Parts and like Pete K and Farius with the first two guests as well on the show. So to bring them down to the event was even better. And to have like Sunny Day, everything's that was like probably the standout moment, I reckon, just to sort of feel that sense of accomplishment that you put your own sort of event on and it's gone so well and everyone's enjoyed it. It's sort of, that was right up there. Yeah.
That is epic, that is.
Yeah.
What would you say, if you had to pick one, your all-time favourite dance music track? EDM, progressive, whatever.
There's only one tune that ever nearly makes me cry. I'm very far from a crier at anything.
Oh God.
But the only one that nearly sneaks me into a tear is If I Lose Myself, Alesso remix. Because it's not like the vocal. I love the vocal. It's a really nice vocal. But then when, in the first breakdown, you get the vocal and then you get the really long build up where it just drops into it and you get the and it just starts building up. And when that comes in, and you've got like Alesso on the mic saying whatever he does in his really high-pitched Swedish voice.
Yeah.
And like obviously I saw Alesso at Tomorrowland, and that tune was incredible. And the first Creamfields I went to, I think it was the first one, because I can't remember which year did he not play? Was it 2019 he didn't play at Creamfields? They didn't book him. I think it was. It might have been 2018, I don't know. It might have been 2017.
I think it was 17.
But anyway, the first time I saw him at Creamfields, it was absolutely packed. Everyone was singing along. And I just thought, this is, in a tent, I thought this is just quality. And it's just that one tune that's always properly resonated with. Avicii's the artist that I've been the biggest fan of throughout my time, but I just about missed out on seeing Avicii through not being old enough to go to any of the events. So the Creamfields, each last Creamfields and last year was 2016, wasn't it? And I didn't turn 18 till Jan 2017. So, if I'd have seen Avicii, I'd have probably got that moment, one tune really up there. Because there were so many tunes that I absolutely loved of Avicii's, but I never really got to experience them live. And I can't really put a tune up there as my favourite if I've not, got that extra sort of element of it, because I listen to dance music because I want to hear somebody play it out. And I sort of lost that element with Avicii. But yeah, if I lose myself, oh, Don't You Worry Child, which is like the sort of common pick, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because a lot of people say those two, but they don't really do anything for me. Like personally, my favorite Alesso track is Calling, by far.
Yeah. Calling's sort of one of them that I like it in an Ingrosso set. I don't really like it in a Alesso set. I don't know why. I think Alesso's sort of really evolved from that era. And maybe Ingrosso's sort of one of them who's not really put many tunes out on his own. He's very reliant on his other projects. So Calling's so huge for him, whereas Alesso, I just think there's so many other tunes that over the years have sort of Collins passed the baton on to that have taken it. But I mean, I love the tune, no matter what, wherever it's played, it absolutely goes down a treat. And I love playing it myself. But no, I've always put If I Lose Myself above it, because it's just got. I think the melody of Calling is so iconic, but it's a bit too full on, like for me, for a prog tune. And it's 1-2. Always found weird. Prog for me is like 1-2-6 or 1-2-8. 1-2-5 feels a little bit. But SHM did that a lot. They made 1-2-5 EDM tunes that like Greyhound's 1-2-5.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but it's got so much energy. It's really odd.
Hey, there we go.
How are we?
I think that's better now. I'm not too sure what it was, but we've been having a bit of a pain in the arse recently with the internet as well, so I had to reboot and just start again. But there was also what do you call it? An update that came through on the Zoom thing when we ended the chat. So Christ knows it might have been that.
Yeah.
Sorry for keeping you, mate.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah, because ideally, like I say, I've got like a few games that we'll play in a minute, like quick fire round games, and I couldn't obviously do the delay. So it's quite tough. But where we'll continue on then is what advice would you give to lads and girls out there that are in the music industry trying to work their way up? And we've all had those down days where we feel like, oh Christ, we're not getting anywhere. We're seeing all these guys playing the main stage and it feels so far away. How do you find the motivation to keep going?
I found a lot of motivation in taking a bit of a break from it. I had like 6 months where I didn't really do anything in between that sort of transition from future house into the progressive stuff. And it just gave me a bit of time to think about what I wanted to do. And sometimes I think the problem with being a young sort of producer or DJ or whatever, you don't really know where you want to go. And you're not quite sure what sound, most people like a few genres, realistically. Most people are into a bit of stuff, even if it's just, it's like you like tech house and techno, but realistically you have got to sort of try and hone in on one, and that can be difficult at times. You've got to try and cover every basis that you can to get to where you need to be. I mean, like now more than ever, social media is important. It's not a case of having the most followers, it's having the most engagement out of the followers that you've got. You don't need 100. I saw Paige earlier trying to promote something. 3.8 million followers on Instagram, and the last post they put up 2 hours ago has got 33 likes. out of 3.8 million followers. Whereas I put a post up yesterday that's got like 150 or something out of 850 followers.
Mm.
You know, there's a good percent. It's about trying to make sure that your content is A, engaging, and B, that your fan base is constantly aware of what you're trying to sort of do and achieve. I mean, I got told this rule early on that for the amount of plays that you get on SoundCloud, you should expect, if a track is successful, to get about 6 or 7% of that in likes. That was sort of the translation. So say you got 10,000 plays, you should expect to get a good 60, 70 likes as a minimum, to sort of recognize that people aren't just clicking on it, they are actually engaging with the tracks. Because often you get like related tracks on SoundCloud that people just flick through and you'll get a play out of it, but they're not actually listening to it. It's just, there's so many different ways of trying to sort of gauge engagement. The key thing for me has always been, you know, if you aren't thinking, oh, I can't put anything out musically at the minute, my head's a bit fried, try and spend that time learning another sort of element of the musical process, whether it be developing your social media or, you know, writing yourself a new bio, trying to find somewhere cool to go and get some press pics taken and find somebody who can do it. You know, there's so much more to it than just, oh, I've got to make a mix this week. You know, you don't have to. I had 6 or 7 months out of doing all of that and thinking, right, how can I try and do some of these little extra things? You know, maybe doing some more, going back to the piano and just trying to get into doing these different musical sort of routines rather than the staleness. If you're finding it difficult to motivate yourself, I always find just doing a bit of something different and balancing music with other stuff. I mean, I'm not a committed producer by any stretch. I enjoy doing a bit of production, but I don't have any sort of third-party plugins really, other than a couple that a mate gave me, like Nicky Romero's Kickstart, for example, which is great if you want to sidechain everything. But if your sounds are crap anyway, it doesn't really matter how much you sidechain them; they're not going to be that much better. So it's, you know, it's taken a long time to sort of get to a point where now, you know, I've carried on working at my productions that I've got some decent synths in Logic stock that I've built up. But it's frustrating because I haven't got the money to go and buy all these sort of third-party plugins. So I spent the time trying to develop stuff in Logic, in the stock plugins. And that is frustrating and demotivating because you think, well, why don't I just go and buy Serum? Why don't I go and buy Silent for? You know, I haven't got the money to just go and buy it like that. But it makes you think, why don't I just go and do that? So I'll have a few days off, maybe look at some YouTube videos, or, you know, go and read up on something online somewhere, or just go and do something completely different. Go watch football, go, you know, do something completely away from music. And then a few days later, I might find this one YouTube video that really well explains how to develop a certain type of synth sound. And then I'll go into Logic and I'll do it and I'll build this really nice synth out of it. And that'll then motivate me. You know, the balance is so difficult anyway, but there's so many other components of music that you can be doing at the same time, or just not doing music. But if you're going to, you know, if you're struggling with production or DJing sort of influences or inspiration or whatever, go and do something else, because there's so much more to it now, you know.
That's a brilliant point to me, because I think, like you say, if you focus too much on one thing, the mind sort of tends to, you know, stray away, and you fall out of love with that, you know, whatever it is you're doing. I think it's really good to have, you know, 3, 4, 5 things in your life that you really enjoy, that you're really passionate about, and that you can sort of dabble in. Like for me, music is always my number one, but then I also am obsessed with cars. Like I love cars. I love, you know, like I got my gardening business. I like to do that. You know, quite different things that don't really have connections with each other. But it's enough to sort of keep the mind motivated and active.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, if you're just sat constantly at your desk day in, day out, you're not getting any inspiration. Whereas me, I go out, I'm going and looking at car videos. You know, when I listen to or when I watch some of the guys on YouTube with the car videos, they've a lot of the time got dance tracks backed on them. And I can get motivation off that, because I'll be like, oh my God, that's an amazing track. Or I can think, okay, I start thinking about other things, and the mind wanders. And then eventually it comes back to, dance music. So rather than just sort of sitting in one place and just not moving anywhere, if you dance about a bit with your interests, that is the best thing for you.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Do you think that you need to be producing to be successful?
Depends what people quantify as successful.
I don't know, say, for example, getting to, a bigger stage, Creamfields, Tomorrowland, so on.
Now, yes. 20 years ago, no.
Okay.
People, I mean, even the modern day DJs that really make a name for themselves for DJing that stand out for me would be James Hype. He's sort of the main one right now that everyone's like, oh my God, James Hype is an incredible DJ. But he's also launching tunes out left, right, and centre that are flying up the charts. You know, he is an insane DJ and he's known for his DJing, but he's still producing. And he gets gigs because people want to see him DJ, but with his own tunes in there as well. I think if he didn't put tunes out, because there are a lot of DJs who are as good as James Hype or better than James Hype, and they maybe aren't getting the gigs that he's getting because he's getting some good tunes out there. He's got quite a unique look as well. There's a lot of aspects to it. I don't think you have to be a huge producer to get gigs. You don't have to be putting like massive tunes out on major labels to get a decent sized slot somewhere. If you're sort of talking about Creamfields and you're a good sized Liverpool DJ, and you build your name up in that area, then yeah, you can get like sets out that, like a lad that I know, one of the residents in a couple of Liverpool's bigger clubs, put a few tunes out by the time he got an opening slot on the main stage at Creamfields. But he built himself up, but then he's getting booked as well. Not only did he know that he's a very competent DJ who can DJ for different times and basically can read the crowd because he's a club DJ, but also he's got a good following in the Liverpool area that people come into the arena earlier to watch him. And that will mean that they'll buy more stuff and they'll do this and do that. And it'll fill the stages and, it works well for the festival. If you're just going to be a DJ, you've got to have a really good selling point, whether that be, I really hate the, tickets for gigs kind of thing. You sell this many and you can have a slot. I think it's the worst thing ever. If you can bring, I always say to people we book, if you can bring 10 people, perfect. I'm not going to not book you if you can't, but I'd ask that you at least try and bring, 5-10 people of your own mates, because your name on there should sell some tickets anyway.
Of course, yeah.
I would still ask that people try and bring mates, and if they bring so many mates, we'll chuck in some drinks for them. There's that sort of element to it. But I don't agree with this kind of, right, sell 30 tickets, and then we'll consider you for the next event. But then you've got to sell 30 tickets to that. And how long are your mates going to think, he's mugging us off here? He's making commission and getting gigs.
Yeah.
Paying to go and see him.
Yeah.
To playing 9 till 9:45 in room 3 at Victoria Warehouse. Something like that. You've got to have a really good selling point if you're going to go in just as DJ, whether that be insane skill, like someone like James Hype, who's got that sort of creativity aspect about him that you would want to book him as a DJ, but even then he brings that extra element that he's also a producer. You can be a good enough DJ to get booked, but you need something else. Like, I'm booked as a DJ, as you're booked as a DJ, but, I've also got other stuff going on musically, as in, other content that backs up it from more of a production, like whether it be radio production or track production or whatever, that backs up the DJing. You can't just get in just as a plain, like you're doing your weekly mixes. That will contribute. You're not just, I know it's a DJ thing and it's all DJ orientated, but you are producing the whole kind of thing together. You're not just chucking a set out there on SoundCloud, which I think maybe is what I would take from your question. Can an 18-year-old throw a mix on SoundCloud and get a gig? Probably not.
No.
If you go and do a live stream and you show all these other elements and you've got a bit of personality about you and you bring a bit of something more, why not? I mean, that's how you can get into it. And then you've got to build from there. to be fully successful, Carl Cox, probably the biggest native DJ, who's known for his DJing in the world, but he's also produced and he's also got a good label, but he's known for his DJing. But he came through years and years ago, Pete Tong. Most people couldn't name a single Pete Tong track. Most people won't even know that he produces.
No.
But he's made his name from a DJ, from a DJ perspective. And that's all well and good then, but that's, it's a different era now. You don't get many radio DJs becoming big, Danny Howard being a small exception in that he became known as a radio DJ and then became a big DJ. But he was also throwing tunes out there. He had some
class tracks from back in the day.
Yeah, like Bullet, absolute proper like big sort of tunes. You've got to have something else to you, I think. Whether it be that you're producing or, something else, you've got to have something more about you than just a DJ these days, because it just doesn't get you far enough. You could send a mix to a radio station every weekend. That doesn't mean, some people will see that as the goal, and for them, they are therefore successful because they've completed that goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then surely you should then, are successful in that one goal, then you go and set another one and you go and try and push further than that. To get to the real top, big success, I think you've got to have a lot more about you. I'm trying to produce and trying to put some stuff together and trying to produce progressive house with limited plugins is very challenging, to say the least. But because I'm well aware that if I want to get, I'm getting up the steps, but I'm going one step at a time. If you want to, go up a full floor in this massive building of music, if you want to go full on metaphor with it, then you've got to chuck a tune out, or you've got to try and get signed. There'll be people on the flip side though who are just producers, and then they won't get DJ sets because they're not actively DJing enough. So then they start DJing more and they get known for being a producer that DJs, and then they'll start to get, you can never really have one. You've got to have a bit of both, I think, now.
Yeah, because like you say, obviously you've got guys like James Hype out there, but I think you got obviously guys like Layback Luke as well, where obviously he's produced for probably as long as he's DJ'd. And me personally, I love his track, and those tracks, should I say. And I think most of his fans love his music, but the reason that most people go to see him, particularly DJs anyway, is to see his talent behind the decks. Because it's something that you just look on and you're just like, wow, with all these different things that he's doing. But then you've got guys coming through now, like obviously you had back in the day DJ Blend, for example, who didn't produce. He was just a DJ, and he toured the world. Yes, fair enough. I don't think he ever played Tomorrowland main stage, Ultra main stage. But
people like A-Track, for example, who come from that same kind of, A-Track's come through like the scratching competitions and like the mix competitions through the world, and was like 13-year-old sort of world champion or something. Who come from being a DJ. He's got on the bigger stages for like the Heads Will Roll remix and his A-Track productions as well. Like you say, there are these names that have done the whole world tour thing as a DJ, but that next little step up has always come out of like in the modern the last 10 years. You've got maybe the early 2000s, you still had the DJs, they were just DJs. A lot of Cream residents who'd play all around the world and playing like Ibiza and stuff like that. And a lot of the Ibiza residents were DJs because that's all they needed to be. And you still get that in some places where they're just DJs. But now if you want to go from local resident to headliner, I think you've got to do a bit more now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you've got the exception with guys like Salvatore Ganacci, where obviously he produces. I think he's a very good producer. I like a lot of his music. I don't know too much about production, but from what I do know, I think that he's probably quite talented, a lot more so than a lot of the other guys around. But I think that he could have got to Tomorrowland main stage and the gigs that he did without being a producer, because 99% of the people in his crowds are going to see him because he's a wacky guy on stage. No one's there to listen to his latest track. Even
But
the guys like me and you are EDM heads who, we're after the latest tracks. We're not even going to see him for that. We're going to see him because he's a crazy dude on stage.
yeah, no, I completely understand with the point you're making. But why do we all know Salvatore Ganacci? Because he's
2018.
Sebastian Ingrosso's mate, and Seb put him on the Refuge stage, and he did that whole try to relax your anus thing whilst Opus was playing, and he became massive from that. And obviously,
it was the Tomorrowland 2018 stage, wasn't it?
No, there was a year before that. He played. Ingrosso put him on the Refuge stage,
right?
Which was his own arena. He might have been the same.
Oh yes, I remember. Yes, yeah.
No, yeah, it was 2017.
Yeah.
Opus was playing, and he did the whole. He was like led down back.
Yes,
down
yeah.
And that was his first big one.
Yeah.
Would he have got there without Seb? Doubt it. Then that gig, because of the reaction it got for Tomorrowland, I'm 99% sure that prompted the booking for the main stage. Now, I 100% agree he gets the bookings for his mental sort of DJing approach to things off the back of them. But would he have got the opportunity to get on the Refuge stage in the first place without being best buds with Seb? Maybe not.
No. But
you know what I mean?
Then it comes down to, why is he mates with Seb? Is he mates with Seb because they've been childhood long friends and he was going to get there regardless? Or is he friends with Seb because he was a wicked producer also in Sweden that Seb found?
I think it was kind of a friend that got into producing, and they've sort of worked together on some stuff because they did Flags, didn't they, originally in 2015, and then Ride It.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's sort of a bit of both, where they were sort of pals anyway, but Salvatore was coming through at the same time, and that I think it's all just kind of come together and built into like one sort of project. And I think Ingrosso has fueled the Salvatore project. Being like, right, come on, let's get Salvatore. So apparently, according to I read an interview somewhere, that Salvatore is just like, you see him on stage, he's mental. You get him in a hotel room, and he's like the quietest person you've ever met. So it is a case of, is this a project that Seb just thought, oh, this guy can be a bit wackier, let's make him, an entertainer as such, as well as a DJ.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always found the Salvatore thing really interesting though, because he's mental and he's come out of nowhere in a sense, but has he come out of nowhere because he's been rocketed by somebody else? Or has he come out of nowhere because he's been grafting and then he's got to this point and everyone's sort of caught onto him? I think it's maybe, we're getting on Seb's stage. I'd imagine Seb's got a bit of a personal relationship previously, and that's maybe what's helped him on the way.
The thing that I do find really interesting with him though is from that Refuge stage that you're on about, that set, all the way to where he is now with the now 2 main stage sets that he's done, and he's played various of the main stages around the world. Through that whole time, all of the sort of success that he's got has again been purely down to what he's done on stage. And nothing to do with his productions whatsoever. So it's like, how much of a part did the productions play?
But how much of a part did his actual DJing play?
I wouldn't even say it's the DJing. I'm just saying the presence of actually being there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is he there as a DJ? Is he there to entertain and play tunes? Is he? I mean, when he mixes, it's pretty ropey, but he gets the mixes done.
Right.
So he's clearly not like an incredible DJ, but when you actually concentrate on the mixes and sort of get past the him humping stages and doing whatever else that he's doing, his DJing isn't like that flawless or anything.
Yeah.
Or is he there as a DJ then, or is he there as an entertainer? Is it one big sort of? I think it might be one big sort of act. In that he puts some tunes out, he plays some tunes, he does some weird shit whilst the tunes are on, and everyone loves it. So why wouldn't he carry on doing it? Is he there because he's a good DJ? Maybe not. Is he there because he's got a personality and that's what we need? Possibly. That's what, I think there's so many questions about it. It's a weird scenario. He's just he's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? When you look at the rest of the music industry, he's the complete opposite of it all. I think you either chuck a helmet on or a mask on,
Yeah.
and that's your personality, or you go mental on stage and see if people laugh. And if they don't, your career's over. And if they do, you get booked for Tomorrowland again. And it worked. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Why wouldn't he carry on doing it?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious how he's got there.
It is amazing, like how how far people get in terms of their careers, whether it being because they make amazing songs, but they're not particularly good DJs, or they may be, say, entertaining to a mass crowd like DVLM, but not exactly the most talented producers out there.
Yeah.
How far these guys go anyway, because like I don't really want to start calling out names, but fuck me, there's been some real shit shows from guys that have been around 10 plus years that are like really respected in the industry, and I go and see them, and the mixing is awful. Awful. And I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, there's a couple that I've seen out and about, and I always share this one story of it's a question that's rarely asked, which is your least favorite set you've ever seen? Because we always look at like the really good memories, but there is the occasional shit set, isn't there? And I have sat down for one set ever, like just by choice, because it was that bad. Like there's times where I've been sort of sat anywhere, like eating or something, and somebody's been on.
Yeah,
I'm not sat down because of shit. I'm just sat down because I'm eating.
Yeah.
I went to Madrid to a festival, and Fedde Le Grand was on.
Oh no.
You know what Fedde Le Grand's like touching the fucking things like he's playing on hot coals or something.
Yeah.
Like he's like that all the time, isn't he? He's like he's trying to, like, I don't understand what he's doing. It's like he's trying to type or something. He's like fingers everywhere. He's not actually doing anything, and he's like flicking up faders on like deck 4 that's not even plugged in.
Right.
Just to show that he's doing. And I just thought, right, this guy's a tosser anyway. Let's see if he plays some decent tunes.
Right.
And then he came on. And I think it had been like Michael Calfan, who played like a weird tech housey kind of infused with progressive and old Treasured Soul kind of era stuff. It was really odd.
Right.
He's taken a different career path. And then Kryder came on not so long after. Sid was on, CID. He was on. It was going really well. I thought, this is class. Let's go. Fedde Le Grand comes on right after loads of nice groovy sort of housey, and he just comes out and plays a full-on like screechy bass house set. And it just completely, everyone was just like, fuck. And the mixing was wank. There was like some fella screaming over every tune. I can't remember who it was, one of his hype men, and it was just so bad.
That guy tours around with him, like MC Ambush with Afrojack, and that guy sometimes just talks too much.
I don't know which one it is. I can't remember his name now, but my God, it was the worst experience I have ever had at a music. Me and my mate were just like, should we just get a drink and sit down and just wait for the next person? Because there's like 3 stages. There's like a rising Spanish act stage. So there were loads of random sort of people playing random tunes. And then there was like the small stage, which was like the EDM one that night. And then the big main stage was like techno. And then on the Saturday night, they switched over. So the main stage was EDM and the small stage was techno. So it's not like you could even go to a different stage, really, because the main stage, Loco Dice were on, and I couldn't be less interested in watching him or them. At the time, I wasn't really that bothered. And then there was some random sort of acts on this little stage. So we were like, oh, we'll just stay here and enjoy this, because Vinny Vici were on after. So we're like, oh, this could be, because you come out of Kryder with like progressive, and you think, oh, someone who's like progressive-y, trancey, kind of beaty sort of stuff, and then you go into Vinny Vici. It's a nice progression. Yeah, I just love Fedde Le Grand, and you just look at people and you think, right, everyone knows he's a bit of a gimmick anyway because he's doing all this sort of stuff,
right? Which
pisses me off anyway. And you think, how are people still booking somebody who does that? Right. He's made one big tune, hasn't he, Fedde Le Grand, and made a career off something 15 years ago.
Right.
And then the set was horrendous. And he was one of the few DJs that I just think, whatever happens, I will never see Fedde Le Grand ever again.
Jesus, that bad.
And you just think, yeah, you've made one tune, like you're saying, some of these guys 10 years ago, we're right up there. Fedde was playing Ultra Main Stage. And then he's made this one big, this massive tune, and then you just think, you know, is he still relevant? You know, should he really still be on these big stages now? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe you book him for like solo nights because people are Freddy fans and you want to go and see him. But do I really want to see him at a festival? Do people? He didn't go down well with the crowd at all. Like, he really didn't go down well. It wasn't just us. Everyone was just sort of like, yeah, just sort of two-stepping away to what was a really heavy sort of bassy electro set.
Yeah,
So
he the only I don't think I've ever seen him. The only time that I've like really understood how he plays is I've watched his Ultra 2018 main stage set, I think it was.
right,
And I did enjoy it, but at the time, I mean, I weren't DJing because I learned to DJ at the end of 2018. So I didn't really take into it too much. I'll have to go back over it and watch it again and sort of now that I understand.
he did like a boiler room type one for DJ Mag or something.
Right.
And you can see him flicking random because they do close-up shots, don't they? Like, they stick a
Yeah.
camera outside the decks, and you can see him just pissing around with effects that aren't even switched on. And so, it's like, because you know the button's not flashing or anything, but he's like it and like,
Oh
you know,
God.
like the you know, like the time sort of thing to sort of speed up the filter or whatever.
Right,
and
right.
doing all and you know, stuff like that. He's just really, and like flicking the bass up like on a drop, like as if he's doing something, but it's on like deck one, which has got acapellas on and playing. And you just look at these people and you think, yeah, maybe 15 years ago you were right up there, but why are you still getting gigs now when there's so many bigger, better names coming through? You're just nicking your slots here because you made one tune in 2007 or something.
That's when it's gross, when you've got guys that are sort of similar level, like our kind of level, sort of working our way up, and we're chomping at the bit. We're trying to get in there as hard as we can, and then you've got guys like that holding up the fucking scene, and it's like, move on.
In that instance, I'd rather them take Freddy off the lineup, move everybody else up one, and put some kid on at the start.
Local guy,
Just jack him and move everyone up an hour.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. See, I'm surprised by that because I like his music, but I don't know too much about him in terms of DJing anyway, because I'm not seeing him live. And
mine's some big tunes, but he's not had any sort of big ones since that, I wouldn't say.
No, but I mean, since you said that, I might as well say the one guy who, well, there was a couple, but Paul Oakenfold really surprised me because, well, I played on the same lineup as him at Ministry in the middle of the summer 2019 now, and I don't know if it was just a case of, you know, having one too many drinks or, you know, whatever else, but my God, so many tracks were really offbeat, like quite badly, and I'm thinking like you're one of the godfathers of the dance music industry,
like legend.
Yeah, you've been around. You're like you paved the way for so many guys, and I'm sat here. At that point, I'd been DJing like 4 months. Like, it was one of my 6 months. It was one of my first gigs, and I'm thinking like I could change over from you now, and like, well, there's so many adjustments that I was thinking in my head. You need to, you know, change that. Be careful. And he was just kind of looking around and, you know, having a laugh with his mates and chilling. And I was a bit like, it was a bit underwhelming.
In it for just getting the dosh now. And
well, see, this is another thing. This reminds me of one time, and I ain't gonna hold it against him because I'm a giant fan of them now, and have been. But the very first time I seen Bassjackers at Ministry, I think Jay Hardway warmed up, like he played on the sort of.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He was brilliant. I think he, you know, you got warm up guy 12 till 1, then Jay Hardway was like 1 till 2:30, then 2:30 till 4 Bassjackers, and Jay Hardway was brilliant. First time I've ever seen him, fantastic. Then he comes on Bassjackers afterwards, and he wasn't really fully invested in actually trying to entertain the crowd. He was doing a bit, I guess it was because he was with his mate, maybe, he kind of piss farting about, like doing and just shouting on the mic, just doing stupid shit to his mate, like just stupid shit. And I was like, and it
People,
really lost me. And I just thought, oh fuck this. And I've never walked out of an event before, but
yeah,
halfway through, I said, fuck it, let's go home. And it
yeah,
really pissed me off. But
yeah.
thankfully, I've
That's
seen him
yeah.
multiple times since, and I've met him multiple times, and he's been incredible every time. And
I mean,
I love
I'm the
it.
same. I'd happily walk out if it's shit. But this is the thing: people don't walk out, do they? They think, oh well, I've paid, so I'll just endure it anyway.
Well, this was taking the mix so much to the point where the
That's
fucking
what I mean. But
crowd at
then
the front was getting empty.
the DJs won't, won't be asked, will they? Sometimes, I mean, some of them will take it as a big insult and sort of learn from it. But I think it's weird, isn't it? I mean, I saw Bassjackers at Tomorrowland 2019, and it was one of the last. We saw them. We watched that Armin sort of trance classics kind of set that he did on the main stage, and then went and saw Bassjackers for a little bit, and then saw Chris Lake to finish with.
Right.
And the Bassjackers, he was incredible. Really, really good. Like not hardly on the mic, and he was on the Smash the House stage, hardly on the
I
mic.
was there for that. I was at the front of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it cleared out because everyone had gone to watch Free Our Legend, and it was class. I absolutely loved it. Whereas, obviously you get these other experiences. I mean, there's a few times where people who I've known, mates and stuff, who are like, oh, this guy's a knobhead. I've tried to get a picture with him, or done an interview with him, or met him, or he's not turned up, or he's not done this, or he's not done that, and he's a knobhead. And I was like, oh, he's sounded 7 or 8 times I've been involved in spoke to him or messaged him, or they've engaged with this or that or whatever, and then they'll go and give him another chance and it'll go really well.
Yeah.
But the Feddy experience is just one of them where I've seen him carry on doing the same thing in all of his other sets.
Right.
So I've just no interest in that. But then other times, if I have a bad experience seeing a certain DJ and I notice that all the other sets are better, I'll go and give him another chance. Like, it was a few years ago, Alesso did that awful Tomorrowland main stage set where he brought out like Bad Bunny, those weird sort of Latin artists that were coming through at the minute, and everyone like slated him for it. So the year after, he just did a full-on prog set, and everyone absolutely loved it. I think sometimes you just get caught at the wrong time with certain DJs, don't you?
Yeah. I think, don't know if it's maybe just because it's such a, I know it sounds ridiculous because it's obviously a brilliant life to live, but there's a lot of stresses and a lot of things going on all at once. Sometimes, it might just be an in the moment, they've maybe been pissed off by something or whatever. It's been a long, flight into the gig, or there's multiple things like that. So I don't hold it against them. Hence why now Bassjackers is probably top 5 for me. Like I love everything they do. But like, for example, like Afrojack, I have always followed him like religiously and supported all his wall recordings, releases. Like I'm big on like his label, and like I love all that stuff. And I've seen him, I think I've seen him probably 3-4 times now. Tomorrowland main stage, he was unreal. I've seen him at Global Gathering, not Gathering, no, the Thursday thing, the you know what I mean, at Tomorrowland.
Oh, yeah, the Gathering, yeah.
Seen him there. He was brilliant there too. But the one time I seen him at Ministry, and it was fucking heaving, because obviously, like, he's the biggest name that's played there in quite a few years. Like, obviously, Nicky Romero plays there once or twice a year, W&W, but he's a little bit bigger, I think, than them, and he sold it out almost instantly. And I've never been like that claustrophobic in that club. Like, it was so rammed, it was insane. And I remember the set was brilliant, loved it, energy was fantastic. But at the end of the set, like how I meet a lot of these guys is I'll go around to the side of the stage and I'll sort of wait as they're walking, above you, sort of going away.
Stairs, isn't there? Like between
exactly. And so I kind of wait there and I'll give them a shout. I'll say, shout the name or whatever and say, can I get a quick photo or whatever? And he sort of ignored me initially when I was asking, when I put my phone up to him. He kind of read it and was like, yeah, thumbs up, but then kind of ignored me. So I thought, okay, fair enough. But then I thought, well, what I'll do, because I sounds a bit ridiculous, didn't want to inconvenience him. I thought what I'll do is I'll run out the back of the room, and then I have like my little tactics of trying to meet these guys. I'll go to the stairs part where there's the VIP. Yeah. They have to walk back through VIP to go and leave the club. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll literally just stand in VIP. He has to walk by me. I'll just say, can I get a quick photo, please? I'll have my camera on. Bosh, carry on. Literally takes 2 seconds. And him and his crew, because he's got his mates with him. He's also got is it Ambush?
Yeah, I think it's Ambush or Ambush. Isn't it?
That's it, yeah. So he has Ambush with him. And they start walking through, and all the posse's walking through first, and then all of a sudden they come out, and we're like, oh, okay. And I walk up to him and I say, can I get a quick photo with you? Completely blanks me. Just completely blanks me. Doesn't even look at me. But anyway, it's not like a loud environment. Like it's the VIP bar. You can hear me. I'm as I'm a big guy too. I'm hard to miss. Yeah. But I'm here and I'm asking you for a photo. He just completely blanks me and just sort of keeps his head down. So I thought, all right, then someone's got to be somewhere. So I thought maybe Ambush, I can get a quick photo with him at least. I said, oh, you're right. Can I just literally have a quick photo with you? I'm a big fan of you guys' music. Ambush went, and sorry, pal, we ain't got time. I was like, you fucking kidding me?
The time that he said that, he could just take the picture anyway.
Exactly, he could have gone, bang, done.
Literally just a quick
done. Yeah, anything. And things like that really leave a bad taste in my mouth.
I really don't get it. I mean, I've had the complete opposite experience. Well, not opposite experience, but we caught Don Diablo. We'd left high again in Ibiza. We caught Don Diablo. He was heading to a taxi. He was literally walking to a taxi to go to the airport. Or he was staying at Ushuaia or something. He was literally just walking out of the club. But it was like peakish time. And we were knackered, so we jabbed it off anyway. But it was like peakish time, so it was still pretty busy inside. So there weren't many fans outside. So we were just sort of walking out. And I was like, oh, it's Don there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we'll go and get a picture with him. And he was walking across, and I was like, oh, Don, do you mind if we get a picture? We've seen you a few times. We're all good fans and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, no worries, man, no worries. And I opened my phone and I got on the camera, and the camera like froze, and it like fully froze, like wasn't working at all. I was like tapping the screen, trying to lock it, unlock it, and all this kind of shit. And I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna fuck off here.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, don't worry, man, take your time. It's okay, no rush. Yeah. What have you guys been up to? Have you been out here long? All this kind of. He was like having a full on chat, and I was like, fucking battering Snapchat here, trying to get the camera to work because I just. Trying to get something to work, and we ended up getting we got like 3 or 4 pictures. He was like, "Oh, those ones all right? Are you happy?"
That's epic.
We were like, "Yeah, it's fine. Oh, nice one. Cheers."
Yeah.
Bye. And he was like, "Oh, have a great holiday, guys. See ya."
Yeah.
I just think, and I would argue now, Don is as big, if not bigger, than Afrojack now, like in this sort of modern scene.
Certainly, in our scene, he's
playing the same stages.
Yeah.
Better times now probably than Afrojack is, because he's had that kind of 2 years Afrojack recently, hasn't he, where he's sort of gone a little bit quiet on like the big tunes. He's been doing like the Capuchon Alias and trying to bring his label back up a little bit, whereas Don's like Hexagon's like one of the biggest labels going now. It's absolutely huge, so you expect him to sort of big time it if your phone fucks up. Oh yeah, don't worry about it, mate, don't worry. I mean, even Steve Angelo at Ushuaia, he was like, oh, yeah, no, it's fine, we'll get a picture. You guys all right? Yeah, cool. All right, sweet. Just even that quick chat, it's like, why can't, it's not hard, is it? It's really easy just to get a
not at all. Well,
even if you're walking past and they see you trying to take a picture, just a quick, or a smile or something in the way.
It takes nothing.
Rather than the head down, I'm a superstar and you're a scumbag kind of.
It's so gross, isn't it?
It's not neat, is it?
No. I mean, like you say, at the end of the day, we're the people that are paying for them to have this amazing lifestyle. You're fucking I paid for the tires on your Ferrari. Me and my mates, we got together, and that kid paid for the tires on your Ferrari or whatever. It's just like
certain times I get it. Like I get Charmy not stopping if he's with Marla, because there's the risk of Marla getting someone whipping his mask off or something like that. I understand Charmy's gonna, if Marla's fucking off, Charmy can't wait around. He's gonna go. I get it in certain instances. If you
Yeah,
try catching Swedish House Mafia at Schweier, you've no chance
yeah,
because of the three of them. But, you know, like when there's an artist on their own and they've just played like an intimate sort of gig, like Ministry or something,
yeah.
or, you know, like a solo sort of, it's no odds, is it, for them to just come and have a quick,
No.
yeah, hiya, how you doing? You all right? Yeah, good pick, right sound. You know, it's 5 seconds, isn't it?
I'll
But
tell you what, that is one of the most important things that people need to remember when they're getting bigger and bigger is
Yeah.
just be nice to the people who support you, because you're literally nothing without them. And at the end of the day,
People as well.
what's that?
And support other people as well, you know, don't
Yeah,
just leech off people and then just go, all right, now I've got all this info in a bit.
yeah.
Pass it on. Give somebody else an opportunity to, you know, don't give them too much. Don't let them nick
Yeah.
all your gigs or anything, but, you know, get them on the ladder so that they can go and find their own gigs and find their own crowd and find what they want to be doing. I don't understand why people don't want to do that. It's really odd.
No. Well. Thankfully, besides having a couple bad experiences, I've had lots of good experiences.
Yeah.
David Gravel is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Like he took so much time with me when I met him. I met him twice. Where like I had a photo with him, and then he started striking up a conversation with me, and we had like a half an hour chat at the side of the stage while Andrew Rail was playing. I was like,
yeah,
it's me new pal. My new pal David Gravel. And then guys like Tujamo, he was brilliant as well. I was chatting to him for about half an hour after his set at Ministry.
Yeah.
And he was like a really down to earth guy. It takes nothing to do these things.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You know. Because this is sort of an interesting topic as well, is like I wonder where sort of like DJs, where they get to a point where they're like, okay, this is a make or break point, whether they'll help other people or they just decide to screw over other people. Because I notice, and you might see this yourself, a lot of the guys that you find in the local small, you know, generic clubs where they're playing the pop and the, you know, the R&B and all that stuff, a lot of the time they're usually stuck there because of the way that they've treated mates maybe and other people, and they're bitter, and they don't, you know, rather than helping out the community, they're just in it for themselves, and they don't get anywhere. They don't get the gigs that they want.
When they get into it, they think the club scene is like the holy grail, isn't it? The Tuesday night residency somewhere. It's great to say you're a DJ. Do you really want to do that? Is that really what you got into DJing for? I mean, I get the people who do like the DJ roadshow kind of play at your wedding and your auntie's christening and dog's funeral and all this kind of random that people get booked for these days. I get those people who that's what they want to do. They entertain the DJs. But then I think nightclub DJs are sort of stuck in the middle in that they haven't quite got the drive, or they've, like you said, pissed too many people off. To get to that next step, to go beyond playing a, you know, 2 shots for £2 nightclub in Woking, you know, you want to realistically, you want to be playing, supporting big names and trying to get to these proper events, because ultimately, like for example in Sheffield, there's a nightclub DJ who is a massive big room fan, but he plays a lot of house and, you know, all that kind of stuff because that's what the club's like. But every single week he throws in Nervo and Rehab Revolution because he wants to play a big room tune. And I love him. I always ask for it. I'm like, if he's not played it, I'll go up to him and say, are you playing Revolution? Yeah, all right then. And he'll throw it and he'll play a big room tune, and the crowd will go off for it. But it's not going to happen all night. But then I think, why are you not trying to be a big room DJ somewhere, or trying to do this? You know, have you off, or have you just given up? Have you just not got the drive anymore? You know, so I get it. Some of them are like in the late 30s, 40s and stuff, and they're happy being like. But you know, when you get like these 22-year-old lads, 23-year-old lads who are like playing these little residencies in like clubs and just open format, multi-format kind of DJs that really want to go and do something, go and do it. You know, there's nothing stopping you trying to do it. If you fail, you know, if you don't get to where you want to be, you've tried, and you can always carry on doing the open format stuff or whatever. You know, the parties and weddings and, you know, house parties is the same thing, isn't it? You get all these house party DJs that think they're big DJs, You know,
Yeah.
you're just playing to a house party. They're not even necessarily your friends.
Yeah.
You know, it might be someone else's friends, and they know you, and they've come and booked you. It doesn't mean you're, it doesn't mean you're really doing much. But
No.
why are you not doing much? Is it because you just can't be asked, or because you've pissed everybody off and they don't want to support you anymore, and you've no one in your corner? Because you need people in your corner, don't you? Even if it's just two
Absolutely.
or three that are fully committed, you need
Absolutely.
people behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I have a similar thing to yourself where there's my local club. Sadly, it's turned into a Prism now, uh, which is a bit more generic.
Yeah,
But it used to be
yeah,
Gatecrasher Birmingham, which was at the time in its prime as big as Ministry, if not bigger. It was like the heart of the country,
I mean,
and
that's Sheffield's the same.
yeah,
Gatecrasher from Sheffield, it was everything over here, but now it's just taken over by open format nightclubs.
it's horrendous. It's the bane of my existence. I can't stand it. Honestly, it's my goal in life is to cleanse this country of open format clubs and get us
Yeah,
back to events. I'm not
yeah,
just talking about for our scene. I'm talking about for whatever scene you're into. If you're into rock music or whatever, people should be going out because they want to go and see an artist. They want to go to an event. People shouldn't be going out, in my opinion, just to get smashed and
yeah,
forget the night or whatever.
yeah.
You want to be
Okay,
going out because at the end of the day you create a much better atmosphere if you've got, say, for example, 1,000 fans of the guy on stage, then you have of 1,000 people that are just pissed up fanning about,
yeah.
because they're people who are going to see the one guy, A, are going to pay a lot more for entry fee, but B, they're going to behave themselves because they want to make sure that they see the guy and don't get kicked out for being a moron.
Well, the other sort of flip side of that, I mean, I understand that people, sometimes people do want to go out to go out on the piss,
Mm.
but then I like a night to have an identity about it, whether it be, we won't go to a club because it's the cheapest necessarily. We
Mm.
go because, I mean, yeah, it'd be reasonably priced, but also because we know that we've been to this club before and the tunes are good. You are going for that musical element as well, and you know that the DJ, when you go to one club that you're going to get rock or indie, and then you go to Pop World, you know exactly what you're getting there. I like places like like
Absolutely.
kind of clubs because they've got an identity about it. I don't like clubs that are called like Level, Prism, all these kind of shit names where it's just right. You're going to have Martin Solveig Intoxicated
Oh
mixed
god.
into an R. Kelly tune that then goes into Beyonce and then Justin Timberlake and then we're going to throw Gecko in there. I hate those kind of clubs. Like, it doesn't make sense.
That is such a great summary.
Why can you not? And these clubs will be open a few nights a week, won't they?
Yeah,
At
yeah.
least these prisms are always open Friday, Saturday, or something. So
I
why
do
can
the
Friday
student
not?
nights as well,
Yeah,
yeah.
why can Friday not be R&B, pop, cheese, shite night, and then Saturday's like out on the town, house bangers,
Yeah, yeah,
anthems kind of night. Why can they not? It's just inundating you with shite.
yes.
Recycled 2011, just about scraping UK top 40 tunes, and I absolutely despise it.
Oh, you've put into words beautifully what I've felt for 10 plus years. It's fantastic.
Just can't get into it.
It's so frustrating because at the end of the day, people can't be stimulated by hearing, popping bottles in the club every fucking Saturday night. I'm fed up of popping bottles in the club. I don't want to pop any more bottles. I want to enjoy some good music.
It's like Drake. I can't listen to the Drake tune anywhere because I hear it on a night out and it pisses me off on a night out because I'm like, why are you playing Drake in a nightclub? So then I despise it everywhere else. Then
I can't
it's
stand
like when people go, we're all getting together, all the lads, and we're going out. Oh, what are you doing? Are you going to? Oh no, we're just going to get pissed round Brighton. Right? Okay. Cool. I'm not interested. I'd rather go to Manchester on my own.
Yeah.
And see John O'Callaghan play a trance set,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
just I'd rather than spend £100 You know, let's go and get a minibus, or let's go and get a train halfway across. You know, I've never been, like, my girlfriend's from Newcastle, never been on a night out in Newcastle. Everyone's like, oh, Newcastle's the best.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've never been on a night out in
Mm.
Liverpool. I've been to events and nipped into a club after or something.
Mm.
Other than my own, where I am, like whether it's Sheffield or, you know, back home,
Mm.
if I'm there, I'll go on a night out
Mm.
because that's where I live. I wouldn't travel to another city
Mm.
to just go out on the piss. I mean, I'd maybe go
No.
out for like a few beers in the day,
Mm.
but I'd want to be going to see someone in the evening or something. You know, unless it's like
Oh.
unless it's like a best mate's birthday and they're like, oh, we're just going to have a few beers and then, you know, we'll probably go back to ours and do this. Yeah, I'm fine with that. But
Mm.
people are like, let's get a minibus, let's go to the races, and let's go here, and then let's do this, and you can spend like 200 quid to go and have a few beers. I'd rather spend 200 quid and fly to Amsterdam and go to DLDK and then fly back for 200 quid, which you probably can do.
It cost me the best part of that each time I'd go to ministry, for
Yeah.
fuck's sake.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is it. Like me, I
But you're seeing someone, you're getting that out of it. You're at least seeing a DJ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, between the ages of for a full year when I was 17, I used to go out to the local club, get hammered every weekend. But that was purely because I wasn't 18 yet. I couldn't get into, you know, the raves and stuff like that. So I did all of that initially. As soon as I turned 18, on my 18th birthday, I went and seen W&W at Ministry. And that was absolutely unreal. And I caught the bug. And then from about 6 months on from that, I then started going to raves every other week. So like I would drive down to Ministry on a Friday night after work. For the first year that I was doing this, I'd drive down, you know, 7, 8 o'clock, get there for about 9, 10 o'clock. Have a couple beers in the car, like a pre-drink. I wouldn't be going with anyone. I'd be going on my own because a lot of my mates and music around here generally isn't really very dance music orientated. It's all grime and hip hop shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get the occasional like bassliney kind of thing, don't you? But
yeah, but it doesn't grab me. But I wasn't going to let the fact that none of my mates wanted to go to these events stop me. So I just went to them on my own, and I ended up meeting plenty of people at these raves from around the world. Like I'm friends with Chinese kids, I'm friends with Americans, I'm friends with Thai kids, South Koreans, all people that I just met at the front row of Ministry.
That is the Ministry demographic, to be fair.
Yeah. But
students in it in London.
Yeah. But this is it. But anybody out there who thinks, I don't want to go to a rave because I don't have my mates with me.
Yeah.
The love of God, just go. Because I tell you what, it would have been my biggest regret not going.
Go on the event page for that event and just put a message in and just say, oh, I'm going on my own. And is there any you know, because like for certain events, there'll always be like a pre-meet or, you know, some drinks or something like that.
Yeah.
There's always the opportunity to get out and do something. Like I went on a lads trip to Ibiza the first time I went to Ibiza in 2017, and they'd all been the year before. So they didn't want to go to like certain events. So like I went to Ushuaia on my own and went to watch Alesso on my own, stood front row, absolutely loved it. One of the best events I've ever been to. Went completely on my own and then met up with him after for a meal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, get out there and go and do, like there's plenty of times, like even at Greenfields where I've just gone, right, see, I'm going to see such and such.
Yeah.
Why not? You know, go and experience it. Go out and just don't be limited by fear of being on your own, because dance music, there's loads of people on their own who've been connected by music, essentially.
It's not worth missing out on these experiences. I mean, I would, for like I say, 2-3 years, the first initial year or so, I wouldn't drink because I couldn't afford a hotel at the time. So what I'd do is I'd get to Ministry for about 10 o'clock, stay till, you know, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and get back in my car and drive back home and be back home for 7, 7:30. And I do that same thing. I did it with Danny No 2017 with the one in Bolton in that arena thing.
Yeah.
And I remember driving up there. I left here at like 7, got there for 9 when it opened. I stayed till like 5:30, just water and Red Bull all night, pretty much. And then hopped back in the car and got home for, you know, 7 o'clock.
And you could even have a couple of beers early on if you wanted
to. Yeah, I'd have
Because you can, I think you can have one and drive, can't you? No, most
Yeah,
people
yeah,
can
yeah.
have one and drive with like the amount of units and stuff. So I
Well, like
mean,
you
if you
said,
get too early on, by 7 hours later, one of them's worn off at least.
exactly. Either that, or if I was really, wanting a drink,
Yeah,
if I'd planned the night that I was going to have a drink, then I'd get back to my car at like 5 o'clock and go on the back bench in the back seats and just sleep for a few hours,
yeah,
sleep it off.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's always a way, isn't there?
of course.
Especially like that Bolton Arena. There's a huge empty car park there that you could easily leave your car in and sleep in. No one's going to come kill you.
Well,
So
I parked my car in there, but thankfully, because I didn't drink anything. I don't really need to drink to enjoy an event
no,
because it's there's so many events that I've done completely sober
yeah,
that it's
yeah,
kind of got used to it. So yeah, I was fine just driving home. But yeah, it's a shame that a lot of people probably don't go to events because they don't have anyone to go. But like you
yeah,
say, it's a good shout because there's plenty of pre-events like what you're doing where
mm,
people can meet, and there's
yeah,
also the Facebook group chats and whatnot of it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, so now we're gonna get on to a couple of games.
Right. Cool.
Don't know if you're familiar with these, but the first game that we're gonna do is I'm gonna name a subgenre of dance music, and I basically want you to explain it to somebody that has no understanding of music whatsoever as best as you can what it is. So maybe the feelings that it gives you, and just as well. Ideally, this person isn't musically trained in any way, so they don't understand that you're just talking to some random person on the street. Okay.
So I'll explain it exactly as I would do to any of my mates who say, "Oh, what do you listen to?" And if I take this genre, yeah, I'll explain it like that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go for a few. But again, these are completely random because I know you like progressive, so I'm not going to make it easy for you. uh, um, let's start with bass house.
Ooh, right. So bass house, I would say, is it's quite heavy. It's often very explicit in the minimal vocals that are in it. It's quite hard hitting. If you like anything with any sort of melody or soul to it, this is probably not for you. It's very in your face, and you should definitely wear earplugs if it's your first night out at a bass house event, because they will be gone after.
Nice.
That's from experience.
Yeah. What was, just out of interest, your first bass house night?
Well, the first sort of bassy kind of event I sounds weird. This I went to V Fest purely because I was too young, obviously, to go to events. So I went to V Fest and Charmy was on, and I was front. There's a great picture of Charmy like that to the crowd, and me just like right to the right at the front, like.
Wow, I didn't
Um,
realize you'd played that.
yeah. They had a really good dance lineup, so I was like, oh, sorry, I'll go to this. And Charmy, but he was like full. I was right at the front, and the speakers were like pointing right down. Honestly, blew my ears to bits, but it was brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah. So I fully went to. It's not too far from you. It's north of you, isn't it?
I
Where V
don't,
Festival used to be. It's not too far above the Midlands, I don't think.
I don't. I'm not too sure with that because
I
like
can't remember
the,
where exactly it is, but it's that region.
the closest festivals like that have been around kind of Midlands area for me was first of all EDC
Yeah,
UK, which was
yeah,
Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes is about an hour from me.
yeah.
Um, it's a shame that that's gone because I'd love to have gone to that.
Same.
Um, but the closest one by far, and it doesn't happen anymore, is Global Gathering.
Yeah.
That was literally 5 minutes down the road from my house.
Oh, was it Solihull?
No, it's Stratford upon Avon.
Stratford, yeah.
Yeah. My God, the
Yeah,
lineups, like the 2013, 2014 lineups, if you look at them on Google now,
yeah. Well, my dad went to a few of them, so he's got like the lanyards with him on. I used to sit scrolling, looking through. Incredible.
unreal. I'm not joking you. Like the 2014, particularly the last year's lineup, was as good, if not better, than some of Creamfield's lineups. It was
Yeah.
stupid, and I'm thinking that was just here. Like, I have to travel a minimum of 2 hours to get to a good rave. I had one on my doorstep. The only problem being I was 16 at the time, so I couldn't go. And it's depressing to talk about. I mean, I talk about how I massively was into Hardwell. Still am, but obviously more so when he was touring. But when I think I was like 15, maybe 16, I was in year 11 in high school, and I seen Hardwell, it was one of the posts he put up on Facebook, coming to Stratford upon Avon. I was like, he's coming here.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then I jumped on the ticket link quickly. I was like, get tickets quickly. And then it was over 18s. And I remember I was home alone, I think. And I just sat at the top step of the stairs and just started crying. Because I was like, I can't go and see him.
Yeah.
It was such a bummer, man.
Yeah.
But speaking of Hardwell, please explain Big Room.
First thing I'd say is, have you heard of Hardwell? If they said no, which a lot of people have actually, a decent sort of knowledge of who Hardwell is.
Yeah.
If not, I'd say, that sort of festival sound that has a build up and then like a really big hard drop, like a heavy kind of drop. That one.
Okay.
That's sort of and normally that sort of got through to people because they know that there's like, because if it was for progressive, for example, I'd say, oh, do you know Swedish House Mafia, which everyone knows, like that. So then Big Room is like the other festival sound, which is like the heavy one, and that used to seem to get across to people.
Okay, I like this. You've had a bit of practice.
Yeah. I've had years of this. So what are you listening to? Oh, Big Room. What's Big Room?
Oh God. Tell you what, the last one, techno.
Have you ever had builders doing work on your house? Bit like that for a good 6.5 minutes of the same track, apart from a small bit where there's a really faint string just going in the background on one note, and then that'll dip out for about 4 seconds. You get a weird little vocal that's like the underground, and then you just get builders are back. Something along that sort of line. That's my introduction to techno. I mean, my sort of techno stuff has evolved from that, but that's always, I absolutely despise techno coming into
me too
dance music originally because there was so little inventive kind of approaches to techno. I mean, people like IO have really sort of put a different spin on it, and then you've got like Genix, who's obviously a Midlands lad himself, who has this sort of trance-infused techno. So I've found ways into it now, but it used to just be, like the minimal techno. That always seemed to be the stuff I stumbled across, which was literally just somebody knocking on your door constantly. And I couldn't stand it. Just kick, 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 kick. Oh, let's chuck a hat loop in there. That's it. It's boring.
It's god awful. I mean, like I said before, I don't know, how to, explain in these terms because I'm not a producer. But breaking it down from a producer's perspective, it's hilarious because to me, it's just so basic.
The elements are so simple. I mean, you've got to nail those elements because the elements are so standout, because there's so few like key elements. Those elements then have to still be perfect. But yeah, actually sort of putting the layers in and getting something to sound reasonably like a techno tune is nowhere near as difficult as some other genres because the complexity isn't there. It's just the fine sort of precision of those few bits that you then have to work on. But actually anyone could make like a base layer kind of simple techno tune, realistically. Yeah. It might not be very good, but it's easy to arrange or easy to put together because it's quite formatted and, repetitive in a sense. That's what some people like because it's got such a groove and a constant to it that I've just never really like the minimal stuff. I've never really clicked to it at all because it's just so simplistic and pointless to me. I like music to have a bit of something to it. That's why I like Genix, because he puts a bit of trans breakdown into it, that sort of gives you all the excitement, and then he just leaves a bit of the trance in, but brings like a techno-y kind of drop in, and it sort of just works really well because it's got something interesting going on, and not just, just the same sort of thudding monotony about it.
That's why I fell in love with IO's music quickly, because like I first sort of heard of him from his In Harmony releases.
Yeah,
But
Lasers.
exactly that, like Lasers is my favorite track he did. Like, it was
The first one I came across because Armin played it on A-Start, and I was like, oh, this guy's quality, and then just followed it right through from there.
Well, I found out about him through Andrew Rayel's Find Your Harmony show. And yeah, after hearing that, I was like, whoa, because like I've got my speakers down there. They're the I don't know if you're familiar with the Pioneers. They're the DJ80s, like the biggest ones. And fuck me, when I play that through these speakers, it's thunderous. It's like, whoa. But yeah, I like him because it's like a steak without seasoning techno to me. And IO is just like the guy with the salt play.
IO's got the nice triple cup chips and the onion rings. He doesn't just add to it; he brings his own sort of addition.
He's bringing the mushy peas as well.
Yeah, and a bit of peppercorn sauce, and pizzazz into something that is relatively pizzazzless. It's just, which definitely isn't a word.
It's just like a fashion icon.
Yeah, it's very just like, he's very bland, I think, in a lot of senses. And he really, obviously his death was very recent, and it's crazy that he was around for so little time. I mean, he had past projects. I don't know if you're aware of his past projects, as Forks and Forks.io, which was like a drum and bass one. He had like other stuff going on, and then obviously the IO project it took off. He's gone to a new level. I mean, you had people like Above and Beyond and Armin saying this is the best new sort of slant we've had on trance and techno for years. And I was really gutted when I read that that he died, because he was one of very few artists that actually inspired me. I don't really get inspired by artists that much, really, to be honest, because a lot of them have their own sound. I don't want to be inspired to do that. He inspired me to sort of go and find a niche somewhere, because he was one of the few people that has taken trance, which comes in circles and has its own sort of subgenres to it, and techno, which again comes in circles, has its own, and he's just molded them together better than anybody else I have ever sort of come across do. I thought it was just incredible, the sort of way that he's gone about it. You've got Deadmau5 supporting him. That says something, because Deadmau5 is, by all accounts, is a bit of a prick when it comes to picking who he's going to have on his label.
Yeah.
You've got Deadmau5, Above and Beyond, and Armin, three of the biggest names of the last 15, 20 years, all fully behind this guy. You know he's good. He's got something about him, and he's got me to see techno in a different light. I mean, that side of techno, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
Now I would describe techno through showing an IO tune.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that, for me, is the shining example of the future of what techno could be now. Definitely.
Yeah, he was so talented. I mean, I'm so happy, and I feel so lucky that I got to see him at Creamfields.
Yeah, it's quality, wasn't it?
Oh, mate. Honestly, I've got loads of videos from it. And like, I grabbed a few people that I know, because obviously everyone tends to go off out of the big group into their own little groups, off to little different things. But I made sure to grab the whole group that I was with and say, you've got to come and see this guy, because he is amazing. And in there, it's interesting because obviously he had big gigs in America with the EDC shows, and he was massive over there. I noticed a lot of the crowd was like American folks that were all in there. There was hardly anyone from anywhere else. But man, it was so special. Like, I've never, and probably will never, go to a techno type show again. That was the only one, and it was magnificent.
Yeah, I agree.
It's such a shame that guy's gone, because I think at the end of the day, we've also really got to try and, like you said earlier, support each other. And you know, make sure that we're all good, because especially with what's going on at the moment, it can be really difficult mentally. And that guy had been struggling with demons for a little while. Because I listened to as his lasers, or actually no, not as lasers. I think it was a bit later when he had the Tommy Trash collab come out.
Oh, let me.
Don't Let Me Go. Yeah. Um, he did an interview with this guy that I follow in America, and it's like an hour-ish long interview. And he basically, it's the longest interview that he's given, and he really just goes in depth about the person
Yeah.
that he is and how he thinks. And he has like really deep conversations in terms of like how each day he struggles with the idea of, you know, death, and he's constantly thinking about death and suicide and all these different things. And I mean, when I discovered him, probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years or so before he passed away, he was fairly small because he was still like the In Harmony stuff. It was before the techno crowd fully grabbed him, and he was playing the
Yeah,
EDTs. And there was a Facebook group of like IO fans,
the
and it
Techno
probably
Demons or whatever it's called.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And I was in that like quite early when it had like 500 members. And initially, I liked it because it was just fans sharing. You know, it was a fan group, but
yeah.
it really quickly became something else. And I left it because I was like, this is like not good. Like, he was struggling with, you know, depression and all these different things.
Yeah.
And then there was all these American kids, I mean, kids from anywhere, I suppose, but all these kids just kind of egging him on, like, oh, you know, I don't know if it's just like a emo goth thing or whatever, but they were like, oh God, I want to die today and all this stuff. And it's like,
It's
gee,
not it's not the right sort of message, especially in a Facebook group as well, where anybody can really get into it.
exactly.
But the thing with Io is that he was able to sort of portray what he was struggling with through his music and did it so well. And obviously, music was that sort of escape for him, Liam. And you know, it's the last artist that I think, you know, really had that big of an impact and revolutionized the sound was Avicii
Mm,
beforehand, because I think, you know, Avicii took what was a very, you know, same old sound and
mm,
made something new out of it. You've got artists who sort of expand and sort of carry the genres, like Hardwell, for example, who's carried sort of that big room genre. But Avicii and Io have taken something that was getting very stale. You know, the EDM sound was getting very same old in certain phases, and Avicii just took it into something completely different.
mm,
You know, he was bold in going and, you know, taking that sort of country infused slant on things and going off on a completely different tangent to it. And Io's the same. You know, it's techno's a proud genre. They're a very sort of proud bunch in that, oh, you can't touch techno, you can't do this.
mm,
And he's gone in there and he's gone, oh fuck it, I'm just going to chuck some trance in here and blend it all in and maybe whack a few little triplets in there and see if we throw it into a bit of a side kind of vibe. Let's just see what happens. And he just went for it, and it worked. And it's weird that the two people who've had this massive impact have both sort of found the same fate.
mm.
In a sense, it's kind of strange that that's happened to both of them. But
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
of course, because Avicii had the same ending, didn't he?
same
Yeah,
thing, yeah.
yeah.
It's just odd that, you know, those two have had probably the biggest impact in terms of revolutionizing the sound and bringing it into something really different, like
Mm,
completely changing the sound, but then making that sound so strong in such a little time.
mm,
And you know, maybe it's something that the industry is doing to sort of push. I mean, especially with Avicii, with the, you know, the touring load and all that kind of stuff, that's quite public.
mm,
But you know, with the IO sort of thing, it's, you know, they've struggled with a similar sort of things. It's interesting to know what kind of what is the industry doing about this sort of stuff, because two big artists who've really put a step forward and, you know, gone out there and put themselves out there and could be open to so much sort of backlash, because people perceptions of people who come in and change genres, often they don't like it because they're like, oh, like trance, isn't it? Oh, it's not proper trance, this. Well, yeah, but it's not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1994, so move on. You know, get with the times and follow the development of music rather than fighting against it, because you're not going to win. and sometimes people fight so hard against certain things that it pushes people to to places they shouldn't be in. And I don't know whether that is the case, whether the industry has put too much pressure on certain artists, and that's what drives them away. We don't really know why Hardwell's retired. We know what he said, but you don't know. You don't know the real reason. He tours a lot. Is the industry putting too much pressure on these artists to deliver, and he doesn't want to do it anymore because he's not really released much music, has he, since he's been gone?
No, I mean he sort of said in summary that he was fucking miserable at the end of it. I remember not the last time I seen him, because I seen him 3 times. 2018, I think he retired, didn't he? I seen him at the Hardwell 2018 show that he did. Then I seen him at Tomorrowland at the main stage, and then I seen him at Creamfields. I think the one where he played in Manchester, he looked fucking miserable.
We actually left for about half an hour because we just couldn't get into it. It didn't seem like he wanted to be.
No.
There.
No, and I don't even think that's like a thing against his character. Like he couldn't be asked.
No.
He was overworked. Like,
yeah.
You think he'd done an hour and a half of going crazy in London? Then he had a helicopter flight up to Manchester. They really just overworked the guy, and his sort of final thing. Because, like I say, I don't know if you know, but I'm quite close to Harrison. Because the past year in 2019, I'd stay at his house in London, and I said to Harrison, like, have you spoke to him much? And he's basically just saying like how he'd got to the point where it was 10 years of missing weddings, of missing his best friends growing up, of missing relationships. He didn't have a real solid, stable relationship because, of course, it's such a hectic life. And he's just said, like, all these things that people enjoy, I haven't been able to enjoy, and it just got to him, and I think it just broke him mentally. And I think, like you say, there has to be more measures in place from the guys at the top that run events and all the influential people to make sure that the community is taken care of. But we've also got to do our bit to take care of each other as well, because you look at
the lower level, like where we are, not getting that sort of. If the artists get support, that's great, because we still get to see our artists and they're happy, fit and well, and all this kind of stuff. But the UK scene is, I think, very divided in a lot of senses. And people are too worried about competition.
Yeah.
And the only competition that is going to be left is these people who are going to be out. If you drive away all these new guys because they can't hack it because nobody will support each other, then you're just going to be fighting against people who are already bigger than you anyway, and you're probably not going to get there. If you boot each other up, work as a united front. Like they say, three heads, 4 heads, 5 heads are better than one. Put something together. There's so many people who, I'll message someone and say, "Oh, are you able to help me with this? In return, I can do this for you." Or, like people. I'll have people as guests on my show, and in return for that, I'll do something for them, or it needs to be a two-way thing, because so many people want, or don't ask when they need the help, and there's no sort of common ground. You've got to, if you need the help, ask, and it doesn't matter whether it's you want to have a chat with somebody about music in this time, because like we're doing, it's great to chat about music, isn't it? You feel class about doing it. There doesn't even need to be any real purpose to the conversation. You just ring each other up and have a chat and just say, oh, have you heard this tune? And you can go on for hours and hours, and that for some people will be enough to sort of do it, because we can't meet up at events and enjoy that music. Everyone's got a bit bored of the same sort of circle of, oh, I'm going to go out for a walk because I need to leave the house, or I'm going to do a live stream because I need to do something. You need to not only, support other people, but make people aware that the support is available to them, rather than so many people shutting people out. And there's just no gain to it for anyone. You might put them down, and that's one less person for you to compete against. But are you really gaining by doing that? Maybe they can come back and help you in a couple of years' time. You know, you don't have to expect something in return every time, but you know,
At the end of the day, people have also got to, like you say, at our level, lower level, maybe higher level, whatever. You got to take care of the people around you, because at the end of the day, if they're going to go further and further, it's because they're doing something right.
yeah,
Whether you agree with it or not, whether it's because you might think they're a crap DJ and a crap producer, but they're good at marketing, or they're good at just something.
yeah.
They've got an in somehow. They're doing something right. You know, have your views or whatever, but at the same time, it is, like you say, a really difficult industry. Um, I mean, you couldn't have guessed that what happened with Avicii would happen. Same, I mean, IO was a little bit different, because obviously with what he'd talking about, and that kind
Yeah.
of theme,
Well,
there
I
was
think
something there already.
I think in the same sense, not as deep, but you know, people were aware that there was
Those
struggles for
problems,
people.
yeah,
Yeah. I think you're not always going to be aware, and like that's why I use Hardwell as the example. You don't
yeah,
know how deep the issue really is.
mm,
I mean, what they choose to publicise is up to them, and obviously, you know, we only deserve to know so much about these people in reality. But you know, if we can't help them,
mm,
then, you know, if they help themselves by getting off the touring sort of circuit, you know, good for them. But
mm.
if we can't really help them, we can help each other though, you know.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
even if that's setting up a group chat with loads of people and you just throw some stuff in it, or you know, it's always good to be involved in something. Doesn't matter how involved in it you are, and even if you just sat in the background of a group chat, or you know, you occasionally have like, oh right, we'll all chat, you know, producers sort of get together and chat about some tunes that they're making, and you know, just whatever. There just needs to be a bit more, I think, um, not 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 necessarily support in a sense, but people need to just give a bit more sort of care and attention to the bigger picture,
Mm,
rather than just trying to get the most followers and the most likes and the most plays and all this kind of stuff, and just look at it from a wider point of view. I mean, we were all in that same position where, you know, like we said earlier, you really not motivated, and you need, you know, sometimes you need somebody who, even if, you know, even if you've only been in it a year or two longer than certain people,
mm,
you that could be the words that inspire them. And don't be afraid of someone who's younger than you being better than you.
mm.
You know, it means that you could gain something from them, and you know, it's a it's always a bit of friendly competition.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you know, they're not enemies.
No.
Competition doesn't mean they're enemies. And I see some tweets sometimes: if you're not with me, you're against me. And like, if you're not my friend, you're my enemy, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
why does it need to be that way? Why can't it just be, you know, you might not be like liking all my posts and everything,
mm.
but you know, doesn't mean I hate you.
No.
Doesn't mean, you know, I don't have a problem with DJs who don't like my posts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And sometimes I might need to go to them, and they might need to come to me, and that's fine.
Mm.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. People just need to give a little bit more of their, you know, their highly valued time as a producer with 300 followers or whatever. Like, it's not like we're touring the world.
I
You
think
know,
it's one
we
of
will
those,
be.
because we've all, obviously, we're a big community. There's a lot of us, and you've got
Mm,
many friends in this sort of industry, and so have I. But I won't. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'll always stay true to it. I'm not going to bullshit people and just share one of my best mates, new tracks if I don't think it's good. If I don't like it, just because he's my mate, I will
yeah,
share stuff because I like it. So at the end of the day, don't I think you've got to find a balance. Don't be sharing absolutely every single one of all of your friends' stuff, because people are just going to get fed up and they're not going to be interested. But at the same time, for those, the odd time that that one friend does make a really good track, or there is a few friends within your circle that you do really like what they're doing, make sure that other people know about it, because at the end of the day, that's what helps to grow it. It's
yeah.
a tough industry to grow.
And rather than going, oh well, he hasn't liked any of my other tracks, why is he liking this one?
Yeah.
Appreciate, you know, just appreciate that support and just say, oh yeah, yeah, nice one. Because
Yeah.
that bit of extended courtesy back from you might be the thing that when you have a gig and you say, "Oh, do you fancy coming?" They might think, "Yeah." If you just fuck them off and just say, "Oh, well, why have you not liked any of my other tracks?" and sort of be a dick about it, then you're very quickly going to lose friends. Followers come and go. You need the people that support you. You need to sort of pay them back for that support in whatever way you can. Followers mean nothing if you've no mates. At the end of the day, you have 2,000 followers. If no one's going to come to your gigs with you, then are you really doing well? Is that success? That's why I said, well, people quantify success so differently. I see it as I enjoy my gigs, and the people who come to my gigs enjoy them, and people who listen to my music enjoy it. And if I continue to do that and grow at the same time, I see that as success in its own way.
Yeah. I mean, like you said earlier, so many people would look at Avicii and think they'd do anything to be that guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to appreciate that there's a lot of factors in, being in this industry that changes people's, opinion and their happiness of where they are. And yes, he was incredibly successful and famous and whatnot. But at the end of the day, towards the end, he was fucking miserable. I think that where we get lost in life is people, they think about, okay, I want money, I want a house, I want a car, I want this, I want that, I want all these things. But at the end of the day, what are we doing all these things for? We're doing it for one thing. We're doing it for happiness.
I think
if you're not happy,
I think in the sense of Avicii, he was spending too much time trying to make other people happy.
Yeah.
Trying to fulfill all these commitments that he was getting signed up to by his manager, that he wasn't making himself happy. And you spend that much time committing yourself to trying to be somebody else that they want you to be, that you forget about who you are. And I think he put something along that kind of line. I forgot what I'm about and who I am in his retirement message, something along that kind of line. Anyway, I think, and that's the thing. You've got to remember where you come from, and in reality, we're all just normal people that have worked hard or not worked hard to get where we are, and that's the simple fact of it.
That's the one thing I will say as well, is a lot of the time people don't want to reach out to somebody, ask for help, or just chat to a fellow DJ, producer, whatnot. But from getting to do these, I've never spoken to you before we've done this. I've got on with you really well. Everybody else that I've spoken to, I've maybe met once in real life, and I get on incredibly well with everybody that I've spoken to. It's a real decent community of really good people. So don't ever sort of think, oh God, what's this person going to be like? Because it is a really good, supportive and accepting community.
In the more EDM kind of side, I mean, tech house is quite a vicious community, and they're all fighting gigs. Whereas with us, it's just like we probably all bump into the amount of times I've gone to gigs and just bumped into people at Tomorrowland. I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how are you? People I'd never really met who I know on like Facebook or something. You just bump into them, but because they're sort of EDM kind of people, they're just like, oh, hey, you're right.
Yeah.
I've bumped into some people who are like tech housey kind of people, and they're just like,
yeah.
why are you being a knobhead?
But that's why, another reason why I'll never like that. I'll never like that scene. I'll never get into it, is because it's very snobby.
It's not necessarily like just that genre. I'm not saying that everyone in that genre is like that. It's just
no.
Experience. It can be quite a tactile and sort of like I said, quite a vicious sort of community, and they're all sort of trying to just gain off everyone. And it's like sometimes people won't want you because you're doing well somewhere else. Some people won't want you because you're not doing the exact thing they want you to do. But like I've sent promo mixes in before for like tech housey kind of events, but I don't like playing tech house. So I'll play like more Mark Knight kind of house, sort of house, and then maybe try and work some cridery kind of stuff in there, but not like full on groove stuff, like just the more techie sort of inspired stuff.
Yeah.
But because I'm not playing minimal tech house, or like this specific sort of end of, because I'm trying to do something a bit different, it doesn't go well sometimes, and sometimes it does. But you just got to sort of bounce back from it, and if you need to go and you know, talk to somebody and just say, all right, can you listen to this mix and you sort of tell me what you think of it from, you know, an EDM point of view. Is it too EDM-y? Or, you know, there's always opportunities to grow and learn and gain support from people. You just got to ask for it sometimes, and whether it be through your own music or you just have like, there's times where there's mates who I know have, you know, been struggling or something. I'll just message them like, oh, have you watched the footy yesterday? You know, we'd never talk about footy before, but I know they're into the footy. And I've been speaking to them and I've seen maybe a post or something. I'd say, oh, hi, mate, how are you doing? Hope you're good. By the way, did you watch the match last night? And just sort of try and spot. And if you end up getting back to music, great, because that's the common love a lot of the time. But if not, then so be it. But people, you know, appreciate that. And I think we both appreciate that having these kind of conversations with people isn't happening a lot at the minute.
No.
About music and, you know, this kind of stuff. And as soon as we get the opportunity to get out again, great. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't sort of do something now and, you know, still connect with people, still grow your network. And like you said, we've never spoke before, but, you know, we can definitely gain from each other and gain from this conversation. And it's been a really good conversation. And, you know, that can happen with anybody. There's so many people that everyone will know on social media that they won't really have spoke to before. And I'm not on about like pestering artists and stuff like that, because I don't get why people do that, like fully going and badgering artists all the time and DMing them all the time. They're not going to, you don't need them to try and be your friends. There's so many people in this scene that you can sort of get on with and actually go and meet up with and go for a beer with, or have a Zoom call with, or produce a track with, or go to the Pirate Studios and have a DJ session or something. Or even just like, there's a couple of lads who have said, oh, you come round to mine for the weekend if you want. We'll go to Pirate Studios and have a couple of DJ sets and, you know, play a couple of hours, and then we'll play FIFA, we'll go to snooker club or something in the evening, get drunk, watch the boxing, whatever, you know, that stems from music. But grow your circle and get out, because people need support now. And, you know, you might message somebody who you think, oh, I need a chat with somebody, so I'll go and message somebody. But they might need that support and they've not said anything to anyone, and you messaging them might be the message that, you know, helps them. So
that's happened a lot with not so much music mates, but just more sort of mates in general that maybe don't live so close to me, but, you know, we haven't spoken to for a while. Just check in with them, you know, give them a call or whatever. And by the end of it, they're like, oh, I'm so glad I got to talk to you. Like, I got all this shit off my chest that I've been, you know, carrying around with me. It's been like a weight on me, you know. But want to play the last game with you? I'll tell you what, mate, this is going to end up being the longest interview I've done, but I'm happy with that. You're a real good lad and a good chat. So the last game we're going to play is, I'm just going to list a load of different subgenres, and all I want you to do is say the first word that comes to mind. Ideally, the first word. You can maybe say a phrase, or if you think you need to, you can elaborate. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Progressive house.
Euphoric.
Deep house.
Ibiza.
Big room.
Main stage.
Hardstyle.
Occasional. I can take it or leave it.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
But occasionally, I'll really enjoy it.
Tomorrowland main stage, eh? Trance.
Classic.
Psytrance.
Israel.
Okay. Bass house.
Underground.
Techno.
Acid.
Dubstep.
Outdated.
Drum and bass.
Dad.
Trap.
American.
Happy hardcore.
Underrated.
Tropical house.
Kygo.
Groove/funk.
80s.
And finally, future bass.
Horrendous. I cannot stand it. I didn't mind Marshmello when he first arrived, but
Right.
it goes through me now.
Yeah. Well, the Americans.
The same with trap. It's just like it's so American. It's just not. It's just not us. I'm all for diversifying genres and stuff, but like, just doesn't translate to me. Like with psytrance, it's so Israeli kind of fronted. With all like all the big sort of sign names have come out of Israel initially, and it's massive over there. But I wouldn't know how to describe it really.
I always get confused with the Psy stuff because sometimes I think, okay, a lot of them are Israeli, but then there's like a cross between Israeli and Brazilians. I feel like there's a lot of Brazilians that do psytrance.
Well, there's
because I think like with Vinny Vici, the one guy's Israeli, but I think the other one's Brazilian.
I think they're both of Israeli kind of nature, though.
Right.
I don't know if one's Brazilian. I think they are both.
Because I know that the bald head one, Matan, is Israeli, but I know that the other one with the curly hair, Avram, he lives in Brazil. So I don't know if he's from Brazil or not.
No, I think they are both Israeli. But it's like Swedish House Mafia. Like Seb is half Italian. Steve was born in Greece. Like
yeah.
They are still like you still would associate that genre with Sweden, but you really wouldn't associate it with Greece. But like Steve and obviously Antoine, AN21, his brother,
right?
They're both of Greek sort of heritage. But like,
I didn't realise that was his brother.
Yeah. I think I don't know if it's half brother or full brother, but yeah, it's his brother.
Bloody hell.
But you wouldn't associate dance music with Greece, really, would you?
Right.
I proper associate like that sound with Sweden and like psytrance with Israel because there's like Asterix and that what's his name? Shazi. Shazi, he's
got like Blastoise as well, haven't you?
Yeah, Blastoise, Vinny Vici. I don't know if White Noise is Israeli, but
you've got Berg. Berg's Israeli, I think.
Yeah, I quite like Berg's, like sort of weird melodic kind of.
One of probably my favorite psytrance tune is Randa by Berg. Oh my god!
Yeah,
it's so heavy.
There's one called "See It Coming," which is like a weird sort of not low tempo, but it feels like really sort of mellow psytrance.
Yeah,
it's just so odd though because that genre. He's another person like he's just making a genre quite different. And it's sort of cool.
Yeah.
I've always found Psy a weird genre, but there we are. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time out to chat to me today, mate. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, so have I, mate. It's been good.
Let the people know what you've got coming over the next few months, 12 months.
So I've just rebooted the Parts and Friends show. It's now live every month on UK radio, which is great. I've got some really good guests coming up that I'll be sharing in due course. I've also got my monthly radio residency sandwiched in between Tiesto, Kryder and Adam Beyer.
Wow.
For 2 hours on electric radio every month. The aim is obviously to get some gigs going. We did have ours sold out. Well, we had 4 tickets left for our third party pre-party for the Olympia event that got cancelled. So whenever that happens, that'll be getting rescheduled. We've got some great guests on that and some surprise special guests that'll be turning up on the night to do their bit as well. So there's plenty going to happen. April, I'll do my annual Avicii tribute live stream. So I did it last year, played 6 hours straight of just purely Avicii music on Twitch. I plan to do something like that again.
Jesus Christ, wow.
So I'm going to do something along that sort of line again. And hopefully, sort of trying to tap into some opportunities that I can't say too much about at the like right now. But if they come through, there'll be a few more streams to come and little shows until we can get back out there. So plenty coming up, yeah.
Sweet, that's beautiful. Well, like I say, thank you again for chatting to me. It's it's probably going to be my longest one by far, and I'm happy with that because it's been really enjoyable, mate.
Yeah, bro. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, mate. Take care.
Thank you very much. Cheers,
Bye-bye.
bye.